The following video contains content some viewers might find disturbing. The views and opinions expressed here are not facts and are nothing more than entertainment. The views and opinions are not facts and do not represent the views and opinions of Xirtus or our channel, and do not necessarily represent or reflect the views of the guests, YouTube, Google, mainstream media, society, or civilization at large, or anybody. Viewer discretion is advised.
Why won't God blow up the sun? Do my prayers mean nothing to him?
Hey, how's it going?
Crazy.
And boom. Hey, so
That was a
welcome to
weird little
Wednesday.
stinger.
I was
Is
just
that a new?
thinking. So yeah, this one's dedicated to Eddie's mom, who passed away last night. So like, God bless her family, and also just like want to say like, loved everybody who in the world is going through a lot right now. So dedicated to you guys as well. But yeah, also Seth, I hope you're doing well because I heard you were just saying you were in like a crazy circumstance with your car
It's not that bad. I'm just going through a dark night of the soul trying to finish an album, but it'll pass.
Yeah, dedicated to the dark night of the soul. That sounds good. And the non-organic entities and the emotionless algorithms that will decide our fate, as according to Harari, right? That was his recent thing. We'll get into that. But how are you all doing?
Great.
Woo.
Perfect.
Thomas, what have you been up to?
I've been working on a documentary about some spicy topics, and I'm just gonna go heads first into YouTube. I won't even mention what they're about, just to be safe.
Oh, really? Oh man, yeah, really early on. Okay, cool.
It's just like 3 big buzzwords, and I'm just gonna string them together and put it out. But it's all documented and names, dates, so we'll see what happens.
That's pretty sweet. Okay, and then Andrew, what about you? What have you been up to?
I'm waiting for this job to wrap up on the Capitol building. I've been working in the capital of Kentucky. It's Tartarian stuff that's been redone and bastardized. Like they put apparently linoleum was really amazing technology in the 40s. So they put that over whatever really nice wood they had made the floors with originally, and then they put carpet on top of that linoleum in the 70s, of course. So that's sort of the condition of the building on the inside. On the outside, we're just
you're just like peeling back like ancient. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's that Seinfeld episode with the exposed brick.
Oh yeah, how's that
exposed
going?
Brick, Jerry.
Oh yeah.
Mud flood.
Yeah. Jaron, what about you? What have you been doing?
What up, everyone? I've been wildly out of my mind talking with entities, trying to survive in the world, doing those Uber app things, and creating some art and animations at the same time, putting it all together, piecing it all together, my friends, piecing the mystery together of our intense humanity. It goes deep, everyone. It goes deep.
I feel it. Raph, what about you? What have you been up to?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, mostly relaxing, and in between and from tomorrow again, attending festivals, promoting, let's say, rediscovering the old way of how simple health can be with very simple tools, some of which we already spoke about. But also we had the interview with Michael about the wheat or flour with the seed,
Right.
And we're going to be combining all of that and finally have a festival, 300 people attending, and everyone's actually going to have healthy bread. So pretty much the opposite to Wonder Bread that you can have.
Wow.
So.
I want to figure out a machine I figure there must be something like whoever's making Wonder Bread, they had to get all that stuff that's good off of the core, right? So where's that go? Like somebody's taking that.
Exactly. That would be interesting. Who's actually using that? But it's 1,000% upmarked for supplements or something. Yeah.
And Kurt, what's up with you, bro? What are you been up to? You're working all day, I know.
Yeah. A lot of work, but good to see you.
Dude. So how's the caves? What are the caves been like?
Oh, it's so we've had some wildfires in
wow, really?
Yeah. I think in Pennsylvania and Canada. I'm not sure exactly. I didn't look at the news. But yeah, that made everything hazy in the middle of Pennsylvania. So yeah, that was kind of weird. Like my eyes are burning a little bit. But yeah, there's a lot of crazy shit going on in the world. I take it as an omen personally. I like that.
It looks hazy in your unless you have something on your web camera, it looks hazy in your room.
Yeah, it might be one part that, but I think that's mostly my webcam today. But
okay, good.
Yeah,
I was trying to figure out. It felt like there was some weird weather even in the Midwest when I was driving back across South Dakota, but mainly I was just worried about the grassification of America because there's just so much freaking grass, and when the windows are down and your eyes are getting the grass is just trying to mate with your eyeballs, and you just get it's horrible. The allergies that you get, I don't know.
That is the craziest thing I've ever heard coming from New York City, bro. Just all I want to see is just endless fields of grass and flowers and stuff. I've never.
I mean, flowers and other things, but grass.
Why does grass get such a bad rap, man? People are hating on grass.
Gotta touch some grass.
Cows eat the grass. You eat the cows. Fruits take care of themselves.
There's so many other things that are better than grass, though, right? What about? Can you feed cows kale? I'm pretty sure that's all right. I don't know.
Only like grass.
It's got to be healthier.
Yeah,
pretty sure cows don't just love grass.
No, they'll eat apples and stuff. They
feed our cows kale. Feed them kale.
Might have been the wrong crop to bring up. I don't know.
How about hemp? They can just chew on one piece.
There was, 6 foot tall. I don't know. You sent me this a second ago, Raph. What's this thing? The ancient mystical origin.
Basically, please just read this page which I sent you, page 25.
Oh, okay, hold on.
And just because we spoke about Masonry and, I was just kind of here at point 4. You can read point 4.
Wow, yeah. So the cradle
I'll
of the
write that down,
symbolism used in all masonry is placed by many of the best authorities in that country which they believe was first inhabited, i.e. the plateau of Tartary, and from there transmitted to this generation by the sages of India, Persia, Ethiopia, and Egypt. We are not indebted to either ancient Egypt for either religion or masonry, but to America. Right? So yeah, kind of
I
interesting.
just found it interesting. There's a 1900s book which specifically ties masonry to the plateau of Tartary. And this, of course, would only reinforce the idea without knowing specifics that whatever masonry is today is basically the collected remnants of whatever civilization was there before the last reset. And they carry it on in their nice occult ways, but actually probably just, took away whatever was left, or probably changed a lot of it from what I would imagine. So yeah, I just never had seen a direct reference between Tartary and masonry, except in some letters by some U.S. president who also talks about this.
Right. Also, where Andreas pointed out is Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma. He mentions Tartaria a few times.
Yeah, I was trying to pull it up. Let me see if I can get like the text on archive.org, and you just kind of type tar, like Warsaw can no more be Tartar than Venice can be Teutonic. Nomad in the Tartarian wild keeps his flock in the same close cropped circle, which is what Big Thomas liked.
Crop circle.
It's nice to have crop circles that close to Tartary. It's fair. And then Tukti Shlomo in Tartary. So you have to wonder about this character. Tukti Shlomo, right? So who's that?
It's like a Looney Tunes character. I think that's a Speedy Gonzalez's cousin.
Right. Or is it like, because this is the fun one. We were also talking about Mormonism a bit earlier, because what was it I was looking at? Like the Joseph Smith presidential campaign. We may go with that. So he was running for president, and he wanted to abolish slavery. And so Abraham Lincoln was propped up later after they assassinated Joseph Smith, sort of as like a candidate who fulfilled some of the goals that Joseph Smith had put forth. And he was a pretty decent sized candidate at the time. And the anti-Mason party and the Whig party and several parties have joined together trying to build a faction big enough to, quench the Democrat Republican party. But he'd also said, hey, I'm just trying to rebuild what is like, I think, the world the way it was. And so America is this Tartary, or it's this empire that had originally had biblical characters going back and forth across the ocean from Egypt to here. And yeah, like his whole thing with Abraham was the Book of Abraham.
It's interesting too, he died in Carthage, because if I had to pinpoint the exact moment when I guess like the ancient world was suppressed for the rest of history, it was probably when Rome conquered Carthage, the original one. That was when they drove sympathetic magic completely underground, and only their soldiers were allowed to do it for the longest time. So then you got Joseph Smith like, hey, let's bring us back to, this old sympathetic, reading into it. And
yeah, they like took him and they forced him to go to Carthage, and then they like had a militia like assassinate him. Yeah, totally. Pretty crazy. But the thing with the Abraham, because the Book of Abraham and the Book of Joseph, which was burned, and they tried to destroy all the copies of the original text, because he got them from mummies that he had purchased from crypt robbers from Egypt. Like they had the scrolls, and then they eventually had like the fire of 1871 in Chicago to burn the library where a lot of the stuff that they had stolen from the Latter-day Saints after he had been assassinated had ended up. So there's only like a little bit of remnants of it, but it ties, Akhenaten to Moses, and the idea that they were leaving Egypt. So just hearing that name, like Tukti Shlomo, like the idea that there's like this massive exodus out of Egypt or into wherever of Europe, like perhaps out of Turkey or something. That name does kind of sound like almost an Egyptian, Hebrew name.
It's like half and half, right? I mean, if you're named Shlomo, your exodus was probably before that out of Egypt.
It's pretty trippy. I like it.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna find a lot of Shlomos in Egypt today. Or you might. Maybe I'm wrong.
You may. I don't know. There's that. Rene Descartes was a stoner. Did you know that? I just found this out. Yeah. So tell me about what you heard about this, because I only just recently found this out. What do you know?
So I did a deep dive on this in a book called The Cartesian Voyage. I think it was from like the year 1620 or something. And it outlines how Rene Descartes had this little snuff box, and it was basically tobacco mixed with some unknown herb. And if pressed, I would say it was probably like some kind of DMT analog. but that he would sniff this powder and then he would just be hunched over for 2 to 3 hours. And then while he was doing this, he was astrally projecting, and he was learning about how the universe worked from all the masters, and that he could, show other people how to do this. And that essentially he died while he was in this state. Something came into his body, took it over while he was astrally projecting off this DMT concoction. And then his friends came by, and the doctor came by, and they just started like bloodletting him, I think, and they essentially killed him trying to save him.
Right. Pretty brutal. So he's doing astral projection medium work?
Nice.
Sorry, go ahead.
He was astral projecting and trying to tell the doctors, "Oh God, no."
Well, he stayed away too long. I think it was more like by the time he got back to his body, it was like, "Whoa, what happened here?"
That's what they do say. Is the danger of astral projection is that your silver cord is cut off, and then you can't go back to your body. Of course, that creates the fear of astral projection. So I wouldn't talk about that too much. I think more people need to do that. Be like Rene Descartes. Take those chemicals, whatever it takes to get into those realms, get into those ancient tombs and deep underground.
Well,
those remote bases.
They believe that silver cord gets cut while you sleep too, I believe, and your astral body just kind of like hovers right on top of your real body.
Interesting.
So yeah, I think the karmic system would apply there. Like you would try if you got completely cut off. Like, I don't know, like I'm at least partially Buddhist, so I think, you would seek to be reborn at that point. So that's kind of a wild thing to think about, but like, I don't know, because you're not supposed to be like totally conscious in your current, like, frame of consciousness when that happens. So I don't know what that would look like.
So I'm not sure, but it seems to me the real issue with that experiment was just he didn't inform his doctor friends properly, because if they wouldn't have bloodlet him, maybe he would just woken up an hour later.
But that's actually the cautionary tale in that book. It basically says, don't do the same thing that Descartes did. Let your good friends know, like, hey, I'm going to be tripping today, so come and walk in on me. Don't call the cops.
Have a safe space for the love of God.
Well, the article was saying kind of that he had gone and he was a soldier. And so while he'd been a soldier, he'd probably been introduced by the Dutch to all sorts of things. And so that was interesting to me. So it was kind of saying that the military...
the Dutch.
Well, because what they're really saying is, the Turks, because like they're saying the Dutch were controlled by the Spanish, who were controlled by the Cordoba Caliphate. And so, tulip means turban. And so there's a weird prejudice against the Dutch because they associated them with Turks. And also across Europe, apparently gypsies, right? So this is something recently I was looking at. Let me see if I can find a Saint Gypsy. There's a soldier. Basically, what they did during the Crusades was they had a military saint who were these gypsies that were hired because they were majestic soldiers out of Rajasthan that had come to Europe 1,000 years ago or so. And after they fought met in the Ghaznavid Empire had invaded Rajasthan and Mumbai. And so out of Chennai, there were some groups of the Roma, but there's also another group of gypsies, whatever they're referred to. And so at the time they kept the peace because you had different kinds of Christians, you had Jews, you had Muslims. And so they knew that they could hire this outsider group as conscripted soldiers. And they were also really good at metalsmithing. And so that's why today we have huge prejudices across Europe. And also there's often a case where the Roma have been allowed to, be sort of auxiliary, military in different cases, or like secret police, or intelligence gathering by the Soviets. There's been cases that were pointed out. So even to this day.
Yeah, definitely. I like those paintings because they depict the auras, just similar to the Buddhist paintings, everything like that. I don't know, that some people can see those auras. I can see them if I look at any one of you. If I look at you long enough, you'll get like a little transparent glow. Some people, that's eye, whatever. That's just magical eye stuff. That's in your eyeballs. That's not actually an aura. But it's perhaps possible that these artists, since they didn't have computer technology and all that back then, they might have been able to see this kind of things more transparently. Some of them perhaps the more enlightened ones, who knows. And so it's really interesting to look at the auras. Everyone has a different aura. You look at these masters and saints, and even regular people, the auras, there's something to that more than just a metaphor, I do believe.
Right. Yeah. I also like sometimes they look like they're mushrooms or something, but the fact
Yes.
that it's using
It
different
looks
colors.
like heads-up display.
Just-
Like if you had like the AI in your head already, and you saw people, you'd get all these stats and data around their head, like age, weight, height. You know what I mean? It looks to me like a heads-up
It's
display.
like that. Yeah, it's like a unique signature vibration everyone has. Like it goes to the soul that, you know, when people close us off, it would be great if we could see politicians' auras, for example, and see the shadows come around them, and maybe it would be easier to be more transparent through a society if we
But I
had.
mean, some of those guys literally look like Emperor Palpatine, so I don't think you need to see auras to
Certain
You
people,
just use logic and reason. Yeah, you get
certain
enough
people
there.
don't seem to notice, though. You're right. Like there's some people that are kind of blind or numb to that. I was just thinking about because RFK's assassination anniversary was yesterday. And did you know the Rosicrucians were involved? Just kidding, but kind of. I mean, if you look at it, no. I mean, so Saran, the man who killed RFK, was a member of the Rosicrucians. He'd been, you know, a Christian born in Palestine, come to the U.S. And this is really one of those, you know, like James Holmes kind of things where he just woke up in a van later. He's like, no, I don't remember doing this. What the heck? Like that kind of. He's like, the conspiracy theory was he was hypnotized.
The polka dot dress
that was like the prime
was the trigger.
era for that.
Saran refused to speak or identify himself after taken into custody in a hotel pantry that night. It wasn't until June 9th, 4 days after the shooting, that he confessed to police that he was the one who shot Kennedy. Despite confession, Saran pleaded not guilty in court. Yeah, whereas the conspiracy theories, hypnotism, and also that like don't kill him. No, Jack Ruby. Someone yelled as Saran was slammed onto a table. No, Jack Ruby. Right. So there's been some interesting stories about this. Yeah, but the hypnotism and then just his like involvement with Kennedy, like that he was so close, but that he doesn't know it or remember it. I find that pretty interesting. And that it's been coming up again, right? Because RFK Jr. is running and he wants to talk about like these assassination attempts. So the idea that the CIA was hypnotizing this guy, he doesn't remember what happened. And then he's like, wait, I did do this? Did I? I don't know, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's the exact thing they were doing at that time, and it was the exact people that they wanted to have taken out at that. I mean, it would just be like if you played a game of 52 pickup, right? You were just like threw a deck of cards in the air, and it came down. It was like a royal flush in front of you. That's kind of what happened there.
You know what we should do is we should make the made-for-TV movie, and it would be like them planning all of it. It's about to happen, and then whoops, when you know it, some guy just sort of does the thing for them. And they're like, oh, we don't have to do.
Someone slips on a banana peel.
Yeah, like, and then it just sort of happens.
Whoops.
So they don't have to feel like they historically said they did it. They said if we did it, like that OJ book, you know.
And it's apparently pretty easy to brainwash a person to do that. I always mention the Darren. I know it's a television show, but I always mention the Darren Brown hypnotist person who did like little symbols and cues and the rose, you know, little symbols, little words that of a complete blank slate person falls into a dream state. And if you look at your own dreams, for example, as well, I don't know if you've ever had any dreams where you're holding a gun and you're shooting people because you play video. For me, I feel like I'm playing a video game in a dream. Of course, I wouldn't actually dream of this. I wouldn't actually dream of murdering people. I wouldn't even imagine it, right? But if I think it's a video game, I can't take on that role. So it's just like anyone could take on that role of maybe this person is evil in my. It's so amazing how that those cues and programmings work.
There was a recent one.
So.
There was like a similar one to this that happened in Haiti. There was a guy who had he was an informant and was involved with the assassination and poisoning of one of the candidates in Haiti. And he was caught recently in the Haitian government has sentenced him to, was it like life and sentenced to life, not to assassinate, not to
oh wow, I totally missed this.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because basically like the Haitian government had this pretty powerful guy who was going to maybe like clean up some of the things going on in the Haitian government. And so he was assassinated. And it turns out, I think it was like Obama era that this was happening to. What was the connection? Rodolphe Jarre, dual Haiti Chilean citizen, first to be sentenced to a plot to kill Mose, who had served as president since 2017. Jarre pleaded guilty in March U.S. federal court in Miami, charged with conspiring to provide material support, and conspiring to kidnap and kill Mose. 10 other defendants have been charged in the United States in relation to the assassination, while dozens have been arrested in Haiti. U.S. District Judge Jose Martinez gave Archiar the maximum sentence of after a 10-minute hearing. Hey, what's up? Andy made it.
Is this an older Haitian president that was assassinated before the one recently? John Pierre, what's his name? Is this a different case?
I guess I think so.
So he wasn't claiming to not know. This was like an actual assassin.
Well, the Haitian president who got killed recently, there was like a whole squad, like an assassination squad with like battle armor and stuff came.
Yeah, hold on. I think it's really
speaking of Haitian assassins too. I mean, this ties back to JFK because Papa Doc Duvier, he also claimed credit for killing JFK, and I think he was the president of Haiti at the time.
Wait, who did? Who said this?
Papa Doc.
Oh yeah, Papa Doc.
Duvalier.
Right. Yeah. So he claimed. Yeah. So his claim of connection. Exactly.
Because the U.S. basically cut off support to Haiti because they were doing some questionable humanitarian things, and he retaliated by putting a curse basically on JFK. So he took credit.
That explains it.
And what's even crazier is that one of arguably Lee Harvey Oswald's handlers was a guy named John de Mohrenschildt and George de Mohrenschildt. And George de Mohrenschildt, he grew up with Jackie Onassis. He used to brag that like she used to sit on his knee. He ends up being the conduit between Lee Harvey Oswald and the rest of the government because he also is like this ex-Russian, ex-Eastern European, maybe spy that's living in Fort Worth. So he becomes the connection between Lee Harvey Oswald, and when JFK dies, he's in Haiti, and he was writing his memoirs, and he said the second that he heard that JFK was dead, that he knew it was Lee Harvey Oswald.
Ralph just also sent this article from the Biblio.
This is one of the very old conspiracy sites where you could find good stuff. I actually just wanted to look up Project Orion because Orion means the hunter, and I also know that this topic, actually, there was a ban list occurring for YouTube in 2016. And I'm not going to say it specifically now, but they had a particular ban list. Number 1, relation to shape of the earth. And number 2, relation to all these so-called shootings they have. And this may also relate to this Orion project, as it means the hunter. And as we know, there's differing ways how you can make people go, traumatize them and then go really angry and insane and trigger them. So, just food for thought.
Right.
And remember that shooter that shot up the movie theater during the Batman. Remember that one?
Yeah, James Holmes.
Also claiming to not know anything. Also claiming to be in like college.
That was exactly.
Project, some sort of project where it was like a
psychotherapist.
It's like
she was a CIA.
Okay, there you go.
He was a CIA
what the hell?
hypnosis trainer or something. Maybe
they just pick a blank slate and it's super easy for them, and it sucks. I mean, it sucks that they can just. I mean, is there a way we can meditate, or like if James Holmes knew a little bit of meditation, could he have prevented this? I wonder. So. You don't think?
Dr. Jolly West said that beyond all the drugs and all of the different techniques that he went through, sleep deprivation after about 3 days. This is his psychiatrist? It's just like a shortcut.
Yeah, right.
This is her?
Interesting.
This is her? Dr. Lynn Fenton. This is every psychiatrist's nightmare. I mean, this is
every patient's nightmare.
What about Wim Hof's breathing technique where he can train his central body to remove pain from coldness or something like that? I feel it's like a pain thing. I think CIA plays on your pain and your horror, and they go into that dark spot. At least what I heard from they do all the training and have years and years of finding human psychology, and it has to do with our fear of pain, I think.
Yeah, I just read this article. I wish I'd pulled it up. Actually, I was thinking about it. I couldn't think how I'd sync it, but they just did the study of a woman who can't feel pains, particular metabolism of, let me see if I can find it. Actually, it's kind of interesting. Pain, there it is. A study reveals unique molecular machinery of a woman who can't feel pain. The biology underpinning a rare genetic mutation allows its carrier to live virtually pain-free, heal more rapidly, and experience reduced anxiety and fear, has been covered by new research from the UCL. The study published in Brain follows up on the team's discovery in 2019 of the FA-out gene and the rare mutation that caused the patient Joe Cameron to feel virtually no pain and never feel anxious or afraid. And the new research describes how the mutation in FA-out turned down FA gene expression, as well as the knock-on effects on the other molecular pathways linked to wound healing and mood. It is hoped the findings will lead to new drug targets and open up new avenues of research in these areas.
No pain at all? None? No.
What kind
no
of world would
sense
that be if nobody felt pain at all?
Right. Well,
I think
can you
isn't that
just
what leprosy is?
how long could the drug last? Like 68 hours? You know what I mean? Like so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Then you're like, oh God, this is more pain. Coming back from that drug. I wonder if it's just like a horrifying.
Yeah, they already
have this type of drugs, no?
Right. I think that exists. You also sent this
Morphine and
article, Raph, from let me see if I can find about this skill.
Oh yeah, so there was another post before that. This is now more changing again towards the history thing, but just because we talked about lost tribes and all of that.
Well, it's pretty
With
interesting.
The
Like
Hungarians,
Huns, right? Hungarian. What do you think?
right. And then number one, technically my father is Hungarian, and I looked at the archives. Maybe I told this once. Even in my family name, somebody was serving in the Austro-Hungarian army, and then from my mother's maiden name, in the same document was the secretary for the document. So I'm even like, how many families even existed 150 years ago if both of my maiden, parents' names occur in the same Austro-Hungarian military document, right? And why I'm bringing it up is because, say again?
They conscripted them all. They're like, everybody has to send their
I'm not sure. I mean, the book wasn't that big, it was just for the lieutenants and so on, or whatever, war effort. This is interesting because this channel is basically like a real estate channel with a sympathetic Hungarian guy, mainly speaking German, but this is in English. That's why I linked it. And basically, he's just explaining that now, after many years, that Hungarians really, I think, have been put under the boot. I don't know what happened. 1900 Austro-Hungary. Then you had fascists. Then you had occupation again by the communists, and everyone was telling a new story. And it seems the Hungarians, maybe also like Austrians and Germans to a degree, they particularly tried to obfuscate the heritage and always said it's a Finno-Ugric language family. And now it appears, also to the research that he has now put together in this video, but it seems to be more breaking in mainstream, that Hungarians apparently are Huns, they come from elsewhere, and the relation to the Finnish language is not as it was originally proposed. So maybe something moving in mainstream here, and this also reminds me of the whole human origin story that is now changing as well, which I'm sure you, Andreas, know more about. And maybe this also kind of relates to, the kind of research that's being brought forward into the mainstream in terms of heritage and actual allocation of peoples over time.
Hey, Will Morgan made it. What's up, Will? We're looking at the Huns being Hungarian and the Hungarians being Hun, and this is interesting because we've heard this idea of like, are these people this race or that race? And I'm pretty convinced that that's kind of the wrong way to look at it. That's the same problem with the Roman Empire and the Byzantine Empire, right? There's just two different places that are connected together. So there probably are people that are from different regions that are connected together, even at this point, that have a shared language. And the reason they have a shared language is because they're trading to avoid the problems of weather, because in certain places they have different weather at different times. So it makes sense to have kind of an endless summer of trade. And so there will be places that are, further east, and as time goes on, people start to associate them with the Asians or different groups that are Asiatic. And then in the West, you've got groups that are more and more European, right? And even as time goes on, just because they're in both proximity to Asia or to Europe, then that would be something that you would see over generations. Because if they are interacting with wherever they are, I mean, that's likely that they would start to look differently. And I think that's,
And without having a clear line on this, I'm trying to look for an interview partner. The other thing I put up is the SOQUEL, which are supposedly the original Hungarians. And here I was just like, oh, what an interesting flag they have. This was the other link I had put in, just because it looks kind of, Moorish. You have this star and a crescent moon. Doesn't look very Catholic to me or whatever, So I don't know yet, and I'm looking for an interview partner. I'll come back when I know more, but I just found it interesting.
So why were you guys talking about the lady who doesn't feel pain?
That was based on like the CIA, MK Ultra, and Assassins and stuff like that.
I know who she is because I studied her when I was like trying to figure out cannabinoids, like the whole, what's going on with her in specific is the fact that you have like natural cannabinoids in your system. It starts with an A. I can't remember what they're called, but the Fa, the FAAH, is what eats the cannabinoids in your system. And what she has is a Fa inhibitor, genetic mutation, which means she has no Fa in her system. So all of her cannabinoids have built up to where she like broke her arm and didn't feel it for like 3 days. And since that discovery has happened, since 2019, there's been a whole bunch of experiments with Fa inhibitors, including stuff like red clover. They've discovered red clover will decrease the Fa, so your natural cannabinoids, because what they've discovered since 1997, we couldn't even study weed until like 1997, right? Because of what it was scheduled federally. So in 1997, they discovered that there's more cannabinoid receptors in the body than any other receptors. And if you're like a fucking scientist, that's a big deal. Our whole body is nothing but receptors, and we have more cannabinoids than anything else. So the endocannabinoid system is extremely extensive, and we have our own THC that keeps us from feeling pain and stress and all that shit.
I'm curious.
I'm curious about her sex life, to be honest.
I was about to ask that too.
I don't know. I think those pleasure and pain. I think there's just some inseparable.
I was gonna say, like, the mystics say that pleasure goes on and on. There's levels of they wouldn't define it as pleasure. They would define it as this like pure ecstatic joy of God that transcends pleasure. Did this lady feel pleasure? Like, was she still feeling pleasure, or was it just kind of like some sort of zombified neutral state?
That's what THC does to you. That's not what your natural cannabinoids do to you. THC will make you feel like that pleasure. She's just like a normal chick. She just doesn't feel pain.
Does she have children?
She doesn't have bad moods ever.
If you have an assassin who doesn't feel pain, then what the fuck are we talking about?
She has no depression or anxiety.
I mean, I think it's funny that assassin's root word comes from like those who like follow hashish or whatever, which also ties into the cannabinoid system built into our brains, which is actually there because breast milk is like incredibly high in it. So which makes you wonder, because like that generally babies get that, and like they're doing tons of growing, they're downloading like psychic data and like beefing up their actual bodies and stuff, and
their whole life is nothing but pain and aggravation.
This is
Milk,
so the milk has a chemical that's very similar
to the cannabinoids to counteract that, because the pain of growth.
There's pain of growing, teething.
There's also an
also like the frustration of not being able to do what you want to fucking do. Like,
what would art
babies
music
are constantly
be like?
high. We all know that. They don't remember shit until like the age of 4. Ask a baby what happened. I have no idea.
That's the real problem with formula. It doesn't have cocaine in it. Get on it.
That could be a new GMO edition.
TRE. Trauma releasing exercises. Have you guys ever heard of this?
Right.
Yeah. I think they call it somatic healing, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, it has to do with the somatic system and all of that. But it's basically like the build up, like they see Ukrainian refugees and Afghanian refugees like start crying when they do this, because basically it's a very, very simple and easy way to release the trauma and tension that's in your body. Like in the same way that breath is accessible to everyone, this is accessible to everyone, because it has to do with like exerting your muscles to the point where they tremor, and then the tremor
I've done this exactly.
Sometimes it comes out as laughter instead of crying. Like I've made my wife burst into uncontrollable laughter for 10 minutes straight, and she doesn't even like know what's happening. It's pretty wild.
It's completely involuntary.
Yeah.
But it's the same system. It's the same thing that our bodies have like the secrets to them. And the weird
Can this
thing
prevent CIA ops? Can we prevent MK Ultra with this? I think so, right?
Maybe
you can release trauma
track us
through
our auras too.
Wait, say it again, Thomas.
I feel like the CIA can track us through our auras if they're truly unique.
Yeah,
they have remote viewers there.
I think that's the big thing is that there's so few people. It's like in Star Wars with the dark side. Like they wanted less people to have access to the sight of sight, so that way it's easier. You know, that's all it comes down to. Not only do you want to be very powerful, but you weaken your opponents, so you just don't have to worry about ever fighting them, which is almost, you know, sympathetic. You're like, well, that way we won't even have to come into a battle. I just, made you impotent, right?
That's interesting. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
I mean, it is probably, and it's also, I mean, it seems like the biggest problem is when someone is cognitive and aware and they see something, then they won't buy into the rhetoric, which is another reason why it's like always turning to try to get the youngest voters because they don't know what's going on yet and make sure they're not told.
TikTok on TikTok, they're paying the TikTokers, and we just scroll through it and be like,
where's that meme? Hold on. Yo, grandma, these waffles is bussin' and poggers. NGL, I low-key like it better than mom's. She's a LARP when it comes to cooking anyway. I'm glad my dementia will make me forget whatever that you just said. I mean, that's what it feels like.
The marshmallow.
Newspeak, man. Newspeak.
Well, he wasn't dancing, though. You have to dance when you say it.
Did you guys look into Jay Johnson from Bob's Burgers? Did you hear about what's going on with him? You know what I'm talking about?
More pedophilia shit?
No, way weirder. I don't even know about that. Tell me that one. What?
Well, I mean, I just figured the cartoons that we're surrounded by, it's usually connected to a bunch of disgusting people.
Ironically, this is on the other side of the Moses' line. No, this guy, this guy's, I don't know if you can read French, but l'assistance aux émus de Capitole, the January 6th.
A couple of those.
You got the January 6th part? You got the January 6th out of that?
Capital 6 January.
Say what?
Yeah, apparently here he is at the January 6th, though, right, at Capitol. So he's been charged. Yeah. He's not allowed to work with, they're like, he's banished from cartoon world. He's banished from voice acting for sure. But now he's been arrested. And yeah, I found this interesting. I didn't see this coming.
Which character was he?
So yeah, let me go back.
Wasn't he like the dick across the street?
Yes, he's the Italian restaurant owner.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
It makes it hard to feel bad for him, even though I know it's just a character.
The guy in the photo at January 6th looked like a totally much older guy. Looked like a grandpa. Is that just an old picture of this guy?
Yeah,
I didn't have the mustache.
He had a Ray Epps mask on.
No, I don't know this guy. Or
long face, loses the mustache. I don't know, but yeah, I just find that interesting because, like, what do you? I don't know. What does anybody think about January 6th anymore?
And man, I don't think I can say what I think about it on YouTube.
I don't think you're allowed to.
Speak freely about
I've had some demonetizations on my videos recently.
And didn't they just recently change the thing that now you're allowed to talk about election meddling for the last election? I just recently heard that. Yes, really. I'm not
on YouTube specifically.
Yes. I just heard that 1-2 days ago that they changed the guidelines. Please let's look it up together, maybe. Yeah, please.
I read the same thing, man. I read the same thing, and it was like,
it's a honey trap.
It's a trap. Allowed that suddenly.
YouTube will now allow 2020 election meddling.
Oh, denialism! I love that word.
I will say one thing about January 6th, which is that it exposed every fake tough guy and fake tough guy organization in America. It exposed all the militias, the Oath Keepers, the 3%ers, all these guys with Punisher skulls with their red, white, and blue flag in it, and all that stuff, and military surplus, giant biceps, and headbands, and all that stuff. Just all those guys were totally exposed as actual LARPers on January 6th.
Are we allowed to talk about Carrie Lake yet?
I'm confused about is how the fuck does no one understand the fact that Trump incited violence for every other election that he had, including the primaries? Like the first election that even got him into the Republican candidacy was Stop the Steal. And there was like a huge news report of violence. And what was that? Like Columbus, Ohio or some shit when that happened?
Define violence. What do you mean? Like what was there?
He incited anti stealing of the election.
Yeah, and people with red hats show up and watch the ballot boxes, I guess. People wanted to show up and wore red hats. Okay, and that was kind of like, that's my favorite scene in the Muhammad, not Muhammad Ali movie, the Malcolm X movie. Remember the Malcolm X movie? And they can't get the guy the medical help because he's been beaten by the cops. And so what does he do? He gets all of the Black Panthers, or the Liberation Army that he has, to march single file and stand in front of the prison and show that they're fully organized and they're ready, they're armed and ready, aimed, and they're able, not that they're going to do anything necessarily, but that they could and that they're ready, I think is sometimes the right way to stand.
The idea of inciting violence in America is so ridiculous because our government is violence incarnate. Violence against every nation in the world.
Ronald McDonald
threats against the ones we're not actively invading, that they have to do business with us, or we'll blow up their pipelines. We have more of our population in prison. We pay more taxes at the point of a gun. Our government is violence incarnate, and the assertion that an American citizen who opposes the government, anything they do or they say is inciting violence. We're at maximum violence. We're drone bombing people that aren't at war with us.
How do you incite violence?
We're at maximum violence.
Yeah.
What if for elections we just had little miniature wars? We just had like a Republican versus Democrat war on the front lawn of the White House.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Now we know that
how is there
January
any
6th
difference
it was
between
more.
Democrats and Republicans?
Biden
has the exact same policies as Trump. In fact, double down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And the Democrats blame the Republicans for talking about stealing elections, but then they themselves also did the same thing. They said, we needed like a recount in what year was that? I forget.
Bush, man.
Hillary Clinton. No, Clinton. No, Hillary Clinton. I believe actually did. It was sooner than that. And so they do the same things, and obviously because they want us to forget, it's not, it's human behavior. They know they can just keep, they want to win. They get a little tiny bit of power, and then of course the people who buy both of them, right, and it shut out the third party libertarians, Green Party. All the third parties are shut out. Even if you want to play on that level, some people will say even that level. I mean, I was with the Green Party and they shut out Howie Hawkins. Howie Hawkins was picked as the candidate for the Green Party, and it was it was like selected. The Green Party selected, and I get it because I was there with them too, and they were like, God, I hate how we have to do this as the Green Party. We have to play politics here, and I'm like, yeah, it sucks. We're the grassroots, and we have to play the same game as them. It's
Green
a
Party
nightmare.
never promised to be a Democratic party, though. They're like eco Sharia, like they always were supposed to be. And
Jill Stein was amazing.
I'm upset about it. Like I don't like it. I mean, it was okay for Nader to kind of do it for a minute.
Yeah.
You kind of wanted that was the biggest concession. The idea that if Nader got 5%, well, you wanted 5%. That's all it was. You didn't expect him to be president, but if you got 5%, then it would have been like a 3-party system, and America would have looked different. That's basically all it would have.
Well,
it would have been more balanced.
People, I think we glamorize a 3-party system, but Canada virtually has a 3-party system right now. And I don't think a lot of people respect the level of government. Really, the 3-party system can just look like a distraction, like just a further distraction of freedom of choice. When really, your government is just still hugely powerful, still has an insane amount of control over your life and your economic system. So really, it's about dissolving about how much central power that government has instead of just trying to.
And it's important to remember, like America used to be a multi-partisan system. It's not like we started out with 2 parties, and then there became the Republican Party is a conglomeration of parties. It assimilated and homogenized, and
every time we've had a third party, they become the second party.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it's fun. George Washington himself said, though he said, fear like the fact that you're making a party system here. Because now you've already leaped into the division. You're already now going to have you're like picking flags under the flag. You're the American flag. Now you're going to have a little tiny green flag, red flag. But still, that's the system we're in. I haven't seen a better solution.
Well, I mean, you could pull a Trump and just have 300 Facebook.
Yeah, there you go.
Profiles.
I plan to go full Jesus in the political system.
Guys, do you realize how powerful we would be if we had 300 operational, all in tandem demographic Facebook profiles?
Well, I mean, so AI. Right? That's
AI Jesus.
Thing I think about this next election, of course, is no matter what people thought before, it's going to be so ubiquitous.
The end of democracy. AI is the end of democracy.
So, if I may just come
language bots are the end of democracy. If democracy is a conversation, chat bots destroy democracy. That's how it is.
One will, but yeah, sorry, what were you gonna say, Raph?
No, just in terms of the party, so a small update from Europe, even in the tiny state of Austria with maybe 8 million inhabitants total, we have at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parties on the federal level, and it doesn't make it any better, you know. Number one, all except one are a uniparty anyhow, and even then, you know, and this is maybe another thing to bring up, tell me which US president wasn't a Freemason, you know, or had some kind of mob connections. So to me at least,
Dang it.
it's completely ludicrous to believe that any amount of parties can help, also because a party by definition is divisive. So what you do is you have a populace of people that all should cooperate, and you start indoctrinating them into camps. So they will fight each other, and the only progress given will be the progress from the overlords of the uniparty, but will never be an actual creative development from within the populace because of this way it's set up to have everyone work against each other. So
really quickly, I don't want to, maybe we do want to talk, but I love politics, but you know, I always bring up Plato's Republic, that politics and philosophy is this one and the same thing. We love talking about philosophy here and everything like that. And what about the idea of not voting, right? Being an anarchist, which I love that idea, transcending the government. That sounds amazing if we can get there. But then the idea is, well, people are still going to vote. So they're going to have power over you no matter what anyway.
So I think that's the issue here. So like democracy is a dictatorship where the majority oppresses the minority. And it's where you have to give up and surrender and submit your sovereignty.
Parties are dictatorships too, sorry to say, but
except for the intention.
Well, and that's even more to the point. So we'll get to anarchy, but
the intention was the republic and the representative government. But not to be pedantic, but I just did want to correct one thing, that philosophy and politics are actually really different. There's a great, I think it's
correct in Plato. Nice.
I think it's,
I love it.
Yeah. Well, Franklin, I think, you know, a little, like, studied Plato, and he had a different idea later. So maybe it's not right or wrong.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't the greatest.
Franklin's take was that philosophy is the study of perfect states, and politics is the art of what's possible.
Didn't Diogenes show Plato up with a chicken? Wasn't that his
just to finish my thought really quickly? So the idea that politics does take place and people will participate in it, and it's only a craft, like making shoes, and the shoes are only going to be so good, whereas philosophy can continue evolving and kind of guide the shape of politics. Politics will take place, whether it's AI, people, a million parties, or two parties. It's gonna keep going down. It's just part of what we are.
I think the main issue with politics is all of the money and demonic entities that sort of influence the direction that it travels in.
It's also really difficult to tell what
this guy would. You just say
you had
held up
demonic entities.
You would say though that Plato held up a man today, right?
Well, did you ask the chicken its identity?
That's what I'm saying. By its standards, like, this is a man. So I mean, like, the relevance, I think, also to our, like, our.
He did have one good idea. I don't know if this was from the Republic or if it was from some adjacent work, but basically, like, in a simplified term, you get all of the factions of society together, and everyone gets to vote on what the rules of that society will be. But the catch is that at the end of that, anyone might get picked to be the king, and anyone else might get picked to be the person that has to rely on the social services. You don't get to know going in who's going to be at what level of society, and that only in that sort of a circumstance will everyone try to, like, you know, push for their own best behalf under the consideration of, like, I might be the lowest man on the totem pole.
I mean, also, there's, like, the argument that people make that there's good versus evil, and they pretend that you're gonna get one of the sides from the faction, you know, because we're trying to. A lot of it was not about Trump or the left or the right. You had this obscurity of human trafficking,
good
and, like, a
bad.
lot of mothers that were like, "Oh my God, the devil is fighting us," and so the only thing we can do is put our trust and faith. I'm good at that. I'll put my trust and faith in something.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, but that can be used against you. Once anybody who thinks Trump is stupid is not smart.
I mean,
has there ever been a stupid president? Like, actually a stupid president?
Warren Harding. Tall, dark, and handsome Warren Harding.
Trump manipulated social media. And that's why social media shut him down, because he did things that they weren't. He did things on the quality of an entire country, like Russia, to blame. You get what I'm saying? But he did it by himself. Whoever was behind him, whether it was just Roger Stone on 300 cell phones or whatever, it doesn't fucking matter.
But what do you think about the human trafficking?
He controlled large populations based off of what they wanted to hear, which is exactly what.
But do you think there was any? Okay, agreed. But do you think there's any truth to him trying to fight? I mean, why pick human trafficking instead of something else? You know what I mean? Why
what
pick
would
that?
make you think that Trump is not one of them? What the
Good
fuck?
point.
He almost definitely is at this
Excellent point.
He almost definitely is. I mean,
absolutely.
Well, when you go in, I mean, it's a growing thing. It's definitely both sides. Like when you're going into the president, you probably have a different idea of what it's going to be like on the other side. When now you got the generals talking like we got drone strike this thing over here. There's going to be collateral damage, but I get, Trump did the most. I have to say some negative things about Trump. Damn it.
Oh my God!
He did the most negative, like drone strikes. He just like upped the drone strike game and like upped that kind of like, who cares about the terrorists that I'm buying? Yeah, because this is a typical Republican kind of thing. Of course, there's different perspectives. Yeah, different priorities like everybody else. I mean, I know Joe Biden did an airstrike day one without congressional approval, and that sucks too, obviously. But what about the idea of
the
like
point is taken that when Trump was running, it was always posted that Obama had dropped 20 bombs an hour or something his entire presidency. Yeah. So they were trying to say, hey, look, this guy is so bad. He's going to be different. He's going to change it. And did he change it? Maybe, but more like acceleration.
There's a lot of good shit that came out of Trump.
I hate
a ton of good shit.
There's a lot of good shit that came out at the same time as Trump. I don't think it came out of Trump specifically. I mean,
the relationship with Mexico, number one.
Well, if a thing doesn't last, first of all, it's
Japan,
like
number two.
If I did a really good job building a house, but I didn't finish
South America,
Anyways,
number three.
Show that cartoon at the top. This is very important.
What is this?
This is what we've got going on in America. What you're talking about.
Pro-scope,
love versus hate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's nothing,
And just in terms of power and presidencies, I think it might be wise to consider stepping back and think of it as kind of a round table. I just watched John Wick, the last chapter, or started. Kind of interesting. No, but think of it in that way, because then, do I really care if Trump is president for 8 years, even if he is a good guy and fighting all that and rebuilding the economy? If I have greater plans, geopolitically with the Far East and Middle East and China, whatever, then it's really important to look at the whole system. Because I'm pretty sure that those people, funding these movements, that's what they're looking at. They're not only looking at America first or whatever. That's
what I wanted to comment on, Jaron.
One piece on the board.
Jaron was saying about anarchy, because the idea of anarchy is not to not vote. What it is that you recognize voting is surrendering your choice to the majority, oppressing your self-determination.
Choose your daddy.
And so by selecting to be anarchist, you theoretically are refusing to submit to the system until it kills you. That's the Hobbesian perspective of anarchy.
Of course, there are anarchists that vote. Because there's anarchists that vote because they see it as a tool. They see it as like, this is nothing.
You can use it as a Fabian step.
So I'm just using it as a leverage, which I see it.
Libertarianism, where you try to just get any foothold you can by any means necessary.
The problem with that is that the problem with that. So like, let's say you're trying to do that. So you get into a party so that you can vote in their party's primary. So that way you can select which candidate is going to run in the two-party system. The problem with that is that specifically the Democratic Party, but a lot of the other parties, and I think the Republican Party as well, are not beholden to choose which group selected of the voters the most. You could vote for Biden, you could vote for Bernie, but if they want Biden, it doesn't matter if 80% selected Bernie, and theoretically it never has. That's not the way it works. Same once you get beyond that to the Electoral College. People take a bunch of votes and they don't care because the Electoral College selects the president. And I don't know, we're allowed to talk about the meddling, but am I allowed to talk about everything being that way? Because I don't know if that, are we allowed to say that?
Yeah.
That's how it works.
I hope so. You're allowed to say it. I don't want you to lose this channel. This is great.
What do you do?
There's a lesson to be learned from the whole Trump thing, and that's that we need to become much more sophisticated when we're analyzing information, because all it took was to add one wrinkle and everybody completely got thrown for a loop. And the added wrinkle was, we've seen how they appoint presidents. Obama comes out of nowhere and they're like, we've got to have this guy. All of Citibank says we got to have this guy. And now he's the guy, and then they tried to do it at Hillary and people were kind of savvy to it. And with Trump, it's like, how could you say that? He was an outsider. They tried to the GOP wouldn't even make, you know what I mean? And it's like they added one wrinkle, one layer of resistance. And now we're like, Now there are no patterns. It's just the Wild West now. But all they did was just add one level of complexity. So the next time they want to run someone like a Trump, they'll just make him a double outsider. Just make him more of an outsider, add some other wrinkle to it, and then it's like all of our analytical skills are out the window.
Oh, definitely.
Not to the
Will
presidency.
Trump win?
No.
If he runs, he's winning for sure.
Who?
If he runs, he's
the face?
definitely winning.
Where's the Rubio articles? That's an interesting one because you've got Rubio and Gavin Newsom right now are yelling at each other. I don't know where the article is, but basically because Rubio sent a bunch of migrants to California. He paid for plane tickets.
I remember this. Yes.
And so there's a huge argument. Newsom's accusing him of human trafficking.
Yeah. That's all the conservatives were accusing Biden of human trafficking for flying people from Texas into Westchester, New York.
But you're saying, hey, you're a sanctuary state, so here you go. You can have them if you want to have a sanctuary state. This just happened.
Is this just what you do? You're just like, you're a pedophile. You're a pedophile.
Yeah, exactly.
Or a racist, depending on which is you think it's
use whatever you can.
It's a post Me Too because the Me Too movement also destroyed like the credibility of the fact that this is happening to so many people. It became something that people are like, well, maybe because you hear it and it becomes this big thing that people consider. And then there's enough other stories that people started to doubt all of the most important and authentic cases that involve like the most important candidates and politicians and all of the administration, and this was the same thing. There's like, well, let's downplay the value of what human trafficking means, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, like, decisions are still being, I know this sounds awful. It sounds like the worst thing to tell people that desire to transcend all this grime in the games that, the descent over the migrant sanctuary city. No, we're not a sanctuary city now. You can't do you're a racist. Or the decisions are still being made. They still make decisions for us. That whole 2020 medical decision that they made, for example, could that have been prevented? With Jill Stein said, as her platform, she said, step one, it's a medical decision. I'm not going to dare interfere with them. The candidates like that. That sounds like, is there levels to this thing? Or are we saying that there's no levels? There's no way to step up the ladder of our nation states and to get to unity? Maybe a politician that's like, hey, let's join hands together and like stop fighting each other and actually make decisions without party lines. Without party lines, is that possible? Who knows?
Could you imagine like mandating condoms to stop the spread of AIDS or something like that? It just sounds so wild.
Yeah, it's great, but it's also interesting because there was amazing anti-Jill Stein propaganda, which was awesome, hilarious, entertaining, very effective, but didn't really like focus on that point, which was like, well, to be fair, at least I'm not gonna like force you to be mutated, right? I mean, which I think would have been a pretty cool argument.
It would have.
I mean, also, there's like this thing with, the human trafficking and pedophilia on the internet. Like a lot of it had a lot of evidence and salt. It wasn't so much whether or not Trump was involved as whether or not it existed. And it was interesting that so many people are being woken up to the fact that online there are networks. I think right now they're talking about Instagram. And the
Instigate.
Hey, can we talk about what's her face that sued Epstein? The April, what's her face? April. It starts with a G.
April O'Neil.
It starts with a Giopri or whatever, was one of the main women who, one of the main targets that was used in Epstein.
Oh yeah, Guffrey.
Guffrey.
Yeah.
Gueff, something like that.
Did you guys know that she dropped her? I was paying attention to the lawsuit against Adam Dershowitz, who was the lawyer for Trump and the lawyer for Epstein, and she had sued him, saying that she had had sex with him like 6 times within the last year and a half, quietly, like crickets, fucking crickets, man. They don't even mention it. She said, oh, I must have been mistaken, and dropped the lawsuit, which is very important because Dershowitz, is tied into all this other bullshit. Do you get what I'm saying? So I was more pinged on Dershowitz than Epstein or even Maxwell. And she just dropped it. Like, and it was not even a news blip.
Did she see a single bullet on her table when she walked into her house?
Right. That's literally what I was just thinking. Like, how many people in her life were threatened?
Right. There was the Netflix. You guys seen the Netflix thing? The last thing that happens in the Netflix was her talking about Dershowitz and Dershowitz getting mad. And then he sued her for that, or she sued him. He countersued her. She countersued. So there's all this litigation. And I'm not sure if it just got pressed in litigation. But what the thing that bugs me is how quiet it was. As soon as she won against Maxwell, because they didn't use her for Epstein because of her controversial nature, they decided not to use her or even mention her for Epstein, but they used her for Maxwell. And after that, like no more than 30 seconds after Epstein went out, Dershowitz was on CNN talking shit about April. And because he was scared. You get what I'm saying? He's like, oh, well, this is bad for her, blah, 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 blah. Then a few months later, she was like, oh, I must have been mistaken. And it just under the rug. Because
you guys ever see Dershowitz on Tucker Carlson, and Tucker called him out on his trips to Epstein Island, and what did he do there? And Dershowitz got super defensive, and he's like, I brought my grandkids with me. He's like, I have proof. He's like, I'm going to come back with proof that I'm not guilty of this. I was there with my grandkids and my whole family. But
why were you there with your whole family?
Because he didn't know he was because he invited him there for a family vacation. He's saying, "Is like you can have a whole house to stay in. We'll be on a private." That was his story. I mean, But you have to be.
What does that mean, though?
We're in this
The Island Boys went to Epstein Island.
That one's weird. That one's really weird because those kids do look like him. I saw someone say, or at least claim that was an AI art generation, but I don't know.
No, man, are we just going to forget about Epstein, though? Is Epstein just going to like?
He's a meme now.
Dude, in about 8 years, you're gonna see like 10,000 of them Epstein clones all over the place, all hitting like they'll
What
be
about Maxwell? What about Ghislaine? What the fuck? Where's the list? What the fuck? Were you just not going to talk about this shit anymore?
Well, I mean, so
Ghislaine Maxwell was literally the child of a Bond villain.
That's what's beautiful about the QAnon thing. Like, it's not really about Trump. It's more about this idea. And actually, you know, Raph, you brought up this idea of continuity of governance, because it was saying, hey, look, we're going to get rid of all these CEOs. A lot of CEOs did get replaced. The economy won't collapse because we're going to put certain people in charge of those things. This is even to this day right now, CNN CEO just stepped down. He fired
all those CEOs who stepped down in 2019, and that QAnon was hired to talking about. They were insider trading essentially. They knew that the economy was going to shut down in 2020, so it's a pretty good time to take your golden parachute right before then, before the economy collapses. So it's like these CEOs who all stepped down in 2019 look like geniuses considering what happened in 2020, or just like what a lucky guess.
Yeah, but also the economy, like the U.S. economy is greater because of COVID, right? Like the amount of spending, everything is benefited. These major corporations.
Does that include government spending?
I mean,
corporations don't have to pay as many people to work as hard, and they have more automation. I mean, like the raise of salary is lower, while the increase of gross profit is higher. I mean, the entropy is lower. I mean, everything is better because of.
But there's still a bigger wealth gap, thoh. Like the wealth,
and there's a bigger and bigger wealth gap, right? Which is also, you know, I think part of.
I think that includes military spending too. Honestly, like the GDP, the GDP.
We just spent $15 billion to Ukraine for health.
Yeah,
for healthcare
is relative to military spending. People don't know that the GDP is fake. They adjust it relative to military spending, so to not reflect what portion of it is military spending.
That's totally how much of it went to Israel.
What do you guys know about demographics?
In which respect?
Well, country of demographics, like China through the majority of our life had the one-child policy, right?
I think they changed that before we were born. It was like 80 something like that. They changed it, but
even if they changed it, it was not. It was changed to. It was too late. They changed it to 2. They changed it to 3. Then they said it was unlimited, but it didn't matter because the cultural relevance of like not having girls and shit was already there. Fact of the matter is, China has no millennials. Nobody has any millennials except like Mexico.
Yeah, and China's actually in a situation, right, where they've been trying to give them socialized fertility drugs in order to increase child births and twins and everything else.
It won't help.
But because the kids are taking pledges to never have a child policy. They're like, there's
You
a lot
could
of kids
clone, and it wouldn't help.
Interesting.
they
That's
don't. A
interesting.
lot
You
of kids
could
don't want to have
clone,
kids in China.
and
A
it
lot of
wouldn't
people-
help. They have no-
Ashwagandha.
Right.
Kill yourself. Get
everybody's
that fertility going.
It's
Plant
happening.
based.
Everybody's old. You have
Herbs.
nobody. You have no workers. You can't support the. You're gonna have like humongous famine because individual like that's probably Russia's demographics are very similar, and that's probably why Russia invaded Ukraine to begin with, is because they knew where they were doomed.
I mean, you've got different. So the thing is, China's building up for a population that's not Chinese. I think that's the kind of the poetic justice of saying everything here is China. They're including all kinds of things that weren't China. There's like 50 different ethnicities, 300 different languages from what was left before the Manchurian Wars. China was a really diverse idea. I mean, it's Asia. They think they're all of Asia, and what that also would include is parts of Russia and places where Europeans are. So what's going to be interesting is moving in people, probably European and Russo people from the north, and then there's parts of Africa that are going to move into China. It might be that China succeeds, but it won't be Chinese.
It won't be ethically
but
Chinese.
what will be what we think it is in terms of like nothing is going to remain the way it was. I think they're moving a mass exodus of people everywhere, and that way no one will remember what things were before.
So is this the end of globalization or the beginning of like a type 1 civilization?
I think they want to isolate different kinds of people from each other because they're worried about their corn. You know, if you have a monocrop and then there's a blight and it kills everybody. I mean, I think they genuinely, some of them at least, believe this, and so they think the idea is that we'll have people divided, segregated, separated, and isolated from each other so that after 9 generations, they're different enough that if a virus hit one population, it wouldn't affect another. I think that's partially what they want to do.
Do they? Have they ended their lockdowns? Sorry, I couldn't keep up because they still had them in like 2022. They were still like locking people down. And so I imagine they ended that, right?
They can't unlock.
That sounded like hell.
Unlock, they all die because their vax doesn't work.
Right, and there's new COVID, new wave, etc. There's always new lockdowns. China's actually just lockdowns turned in pretty normal. It's becoming another thing.
One thing that 2020 did for me is cure any hint of germophobia. I was like, I wouldn't touch bathroom knobs and stuff. Now I touch them with my bare hand. Like I'm back to like the 80s when there's no germ.
I want to be free.
I'm not afraid of getting sick anymore.
Do you guys know about Howard Hughes?
Do you guys know about McNamara's 100,000 in the Vietnam War? The low IQ soldiers.
Oh my God! Did you just hear the cat?
I did. That's
sorry, cat.
That's amazing.
I gotta mute my mic.
What a great voice! No, that was beautiful.
It's like a phone. Yeah. I mean, McNamara's 100,000, McNamara's Folly, McNamara's Morons, McNamara's Misfits. There's a whole thing. But this is not the first or last time that this has happened. And some people consider this like close to eugenics. They're like, well, we'll just find people that have the lowest IQs we can get, and we'll put them into the military to fill up the ranks and put them in really dangerous positions. You know, people.
Police.
Yeah. Eventually led to a legal floor of an IQ of 80. But so this is kind of connected to the Full Metal Jacket movie. He's one of McNamara's morons, right? Because he's got mental issues and has been subscribed to be a soldier, and he's just put in with everybody else, right? And so they don't know how to deal with him.
And that's where they get the Joint Chiefs from. They pick them from the moron pile.
Pretty insane. I think to have like
these guys all probably got massive promotions, right?
Well, so a lot of people died, obviously, and they were put into really dangerous circumstances, and that's like it seems like kind of a form of like removing people from society. Like you don't have a job, so we're not, if you have a job, you're in school to become a lawyer or something like that, we're going to try to keep you out of Vietnam. But if we can, we don't need you, then we'll put you in the front lines, right?
High school sports gets more money than the arts.
Did Russia do the draft? Did they bring the draft, or did people like say no to that? Or
no, they're conscripting in both Ukraine and Russia from day one of the war. Nobody wanted to fight in this war.
It scares the hell out of me.
In the draft to over 50 in Russia. There's a speculation on whether or not they're going to do that.
There were a lot of Ukrainians who were amped up to fight, young men, but then they had to start conscripting. But they're conscripting in Russia from day one. No one wanted to do this.
Right. Yeah. And it'll probably end up being that, Russia has to go full military, where everybody's part of the military, in some respect, like everyone at a certain age just has to be educated. To be Russian is to be part of.
Yeah. Well, they didn't show up. They were supposed to show up in May with like 500 new recruits, not well trained in Russia, and they didn't show up. But like the news this morning was that they had just bombed a bridge in Crimea that is probably going to muck things up again.
Right. Yeah, and the Ukraine counteroffensive is looking pretty scary too. Right. I saw that. I mean, I don't know, because like it just, to me, what I think of is the Star Wars like Clone Wars. So you just have drones being made and clones being killed, and so there are innocent people that are dying, and there's like expensive machines that are being destroyed. But what they're really trying to do is just exhaust everything and everybody before a major world conflict. Because if as many of the access in the alleys,
do a world conflict, bro.
Especially now, especially if you put everything into Ukraine, just like the Ukraine is just going to be a big metal pile of destroyed drones and all of them. Like it's going to be great to recycle metal in Ukraine.
We figured out that though, like, look, Russia was supposed to dominate Ukraine, and they didn't, to the surprise of everybody, including Russia, and most importantly, China, because China realizes, shit, half of our armory is from Russia. If they can't do the shit, like if they send missiles, if Russia sends missiles into Ukraine, and over like 97% of those missiles are getting shut down, then China's like, we don't have a chance in hell of taking anybody because all of our armory is from Russia. It's a bad deal for China. But the fact is, we don't even have the power to do a full-blown war. Our Navy is at an all-time low compared to after World War II. So,
and we can bring in the nuclear equation, because the UFOs have been on the news again. UFOs trending in Twitter. That whole idea of people are coming out. Man, there's some good podcasts with Jeremy Corbyn, I believe his name is.
Jeremy the Hair Corbell.
I have, Corbyn. Just, whatever you think. It is coming out more and more, obviously, and there are whistleblowers that have, the government has whole programs to silent. You're not supposed to talk about this, but now they're making programs where it's okay. They're making like laws made where you have to come out as a whistleblower. If you know any information at all, you have to come out and you have to reveal what you know. So Fox News had some people and stuff like that. And to bring on to connect it with Russia and Ukraine, I didn't want to get off that topic, in China and everything. Why haven't they used nuclear weapons yet? Like we have nuclear weapons. They've have footage of UFOs disarming nuclear weapons. So maybe that's a part of the game theory in this war, is like, okay, well, we know, also the idea of using a nuclear weapon is within itself just like a death sentence to a lot of people, and a national renown. You go down when you use those weapons because it's devastating. But also there's an extraterrestrial element to this. There's an interdimensional element to the physics of splitting the atom has an effect on not just Earth. When you do these kinds of things, it has an effect that's cosmic. It's disturbing. It does things to the soul. So anyway, to that point,
I never noticed this in the picture of RFK on 1968, that Thane Eugene Caesar, the security guard from Lockheed Skunk Works, was right behind RFK with the gun drawn.
Absolutely, he fucking killed him probably.
Perhaps.
No, I mean, dude, the story is pretty wild. If you look at like all the forensics and the police reports about where all the bullets that were accounted for went, and it doesn't make much sense that Sirhan did the job. It's weird. It's even weird because like the bullets that entered Kennedy were like contact shots, like right up against him, and multiple witnesses even say that like they didn't see Sirhan get anywhere near him within like 6 or 7 feet.
Right.
So it's interesting. And who was right by his side was the Caesar guy.
Hypnopatsy. Yeah. Pretty brutal.
Sirhan, is that his first name and last name?
I guess so.
Because that's
his middle
cool.
name. It's Sir
Yeah, I
Han,
like that.
Sir Han.
You guys saw
That's
in,
awesome.
in
That's so
Hawaii, in Kailua, one of the world's most active volcanoes started erupting again, and it's gonna be all gonna be all cray. But it also means that there's gonna be new parts of the island that are formed. It's gonna have to draw new maps, which I think is pretty cool. Because they kind of
house on the new island.
Well, isn't that interesting? Because it explains what's going on. Like all around the world, 80% of the volcanoes are submarine volcanoes. Some of them are on islands, but that's mainly because the submarine volcanoes made islands, you know, in the process of existing. So there's islands constantly being formed, and Hawaii is a major hotspot for changing geography because it's always shifting, and new parts of it are forming, and other parts of it are being washed off into the ocean.
Yeah, that is cool because it gives you a little hope. There's a new America out there.
Yeah, there's new
real estate agents being like,
There's a lot of
3 feet every 40 years.
It's free real estate.
the major events that are going to shape the next 10 and 20 years probably will have nothing to do with Ukraine, Russia. It's going to have a lot to do with just unpredictable things. Like nobody was really predicting, you know, we knew about Agenda 21, but no one is predicting the shutdown of the economy and the lockdowns in 2020. And then in 2020, no one is predicting a NATO, you know, going to war with Russia. And we're not going to predict what happens next, but just on the geopolitical world stage, the big game at risk, I think the most important thing is we're no longer in a unipolar world that we've been in since World War II that's been keeping everything in kind of a stasis where we can do a lot of stuff and everyone else can't do very much. Like we're going to see nations like Japan that used to have the world's best Navy and one of the most advanced militaries come roaring back. We're going to see like just even the volcano story and stuff like that. Like we don't think about the effect of major earthquakes, like natural events, acts of God, stuff like that. So it's like, it's so easy to get focused in on the story of the day, and it's almost impossible to predict what will actually be the story.
Yeah, like reptilian virgin birth, right? Like that's already happening this year. So
I mean, Jesus was a dinosaur, so
all bets are off.
Octopus cities. Have you heard about this? Within the last couple of years, they've discovered that octopuses, which are usually thought to be a solitary species, like lone wolf type animal, they're migrating, or they're there's Octo Atlantis and an Octopolis, like a metropolis, but with the word octo in front of it.
Octopolis. Okay. I see where you're laying down here.
Yeah. Octopolis is in Australia, I think. There's been 2 fucking octopus cities where the first one was discovered around a piece of scrap metal. So it was a human structure that a bunch of octopuses like gathered around, and then the next one was built in like an old shell bed. If you look up Australia and octopus cities, you should get a Wikipedia on it. But again, that's just like another example of like animals are fucking changing, bro.
Yeah, or we're learning more about them. We used to think we knew everything about animals when all we had was books and 3 TV stations. Now you have the internet and you see gorillas are riding turtles and like hamsters are flying on eagles. Like I'm not even making this stuff up. Those are like real ones.
Yeah, it's all been there, man. It's just now unfolding.
Mythological.
You can have a pet cat and a guinea pig and they can sleep and cuddle together and no violence or anything. Like I never would have thought that was possible before the internet. So who knows?
I mean, with the sea levels rising, we may want to.
And like every animal species, like it's, you know, it's really interesting, just kind of a bigger, crazy topic, but like certain animal species, you see exactly what they're doing and what they're creating, like bees or ants or something, you can see their system. And other animals like us, you really can't. And it makes me wonder a lot of the time, we're worried about the one world government, the Babylon system, but like it's impossible to tell if you're Yahweh or if you're Nimrod in that calculation. Like Nimrod was trying to unite the whole world to create its greatest achievement, this huge tower that it took millions of people to work on to make. And God was like, this sucks. Boom, go back to separate nations at war with each other. So it's like hard to tell who's promoting the right technology, who's holding it back. Is it pro-human to be against AI, or is it pro-human to be for AI? Like we're familiar with the trope of the Babylon system and God wanting a natural order, but we don't know which is the natural order and which is the Babylon system.
It seems like if we look at the natural order is violent and chaotic. Like look at killer whales, which are aptly named.
Violent and ordered.
Yeah, true. But they're violent
attacking,
and they're
ships,
psychotic too, and they do all kinds of things. They
the violence is part of the order.
They have their own
and
pods.
violent to what extent, and also for the longest time, documentaries were hell bent on just filming those kind of scenes. So I think that's also like a cultural trope. What percentage do dolphins spend getting high on pufferfish or whatever it's called.
But like this one with the Soviet beluga, there was in Norway, and they're like,
the beluga spy.
They're like, stay away from that cute beluga. He's definitely a spy whale. I mean, it could be. I think a lot of the whales are.
All orcas. All orcas are belugas with like a venom symbiote on top of them.
Oh, that makes sense. I see that.
At least on Earth, this is the natural order. And we don't know, like on other planets, if they're just like pure peace and they're floating in the air to not step on bugs and living off the sun, pure sunlight, because they're not a carbon gross organic form.
I mean, it's pretty impressive already to be a whale. I mean, you're a giant. We've talked about that. It's 100 foot a lot of the time. A sperm whale, like it's huge. That's basically a giant. It's a mammal, and it's stretched out long. It's got fingers and toes. They're all like doesn't need them anymore though. It doesn't need anything. It's living so perfectly. It just eats fish all day and like rolls around and it has a good time. I mean, isn't that kind of fully indulgent, hedonistic to the full max? Like it's I think it's
and the whale songs.
Yeah,
they got the whale songs. That apparently whales can sense empathy in a way that humans can't. Like if one whale, distant, like thousands and thousands of mile distance, the whale can like sense their pain from that much distance just because of the vibrations within the ocean or something. Like more science than I can possibly understand, obviously.
So I mean, nature seems different than like our idea of like a perfect world. Like we're talking about building a city that people don't get killed in, and there's vegetables that you can eat. That doesn't sound like nature.
That's not nature. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? Wait, why?
Virtual.
Why?
I mean, it's cool because we're building it, and like that's kind of nice because we're in nature. So, but it's not. I mean, if we weren't part of it, if we're imagining nature without us, right? Then that's not what nature's doing.
Yeah, without nature constantly reflecting back on itself, how it plays out naturally. Without that, I think that it speaks volume. But that's the duality right there. The question is like, well, what's wrong with the other side?
What's the human species supposed to be building? Because everything we actually can come together in masses and build, people are afraid of. Pro-humanists don't want it. They don't want the AI. They don't want super cities. It's like that's all the stuff we're making besides like movies and art and entertainment. So it's like, what do people who don't want to make AI and who don't want to unite the world in one language and all that stuff, what do they think humans are supposed to be doing? Because we've got this big intellect and opposable thumbs. Certainly,
I think that's where we bring in Alan Watts and that type of old school.
Yeah, and we need hempcrete.
What goal do we need to have if we're just
is the government oppressing us, or are we oppressing the government? Because certainly the government is a more powerful entity than the individual. I mean, you could argue that, I guess, but the government can do things an individual can't. So are we oppressing it because maybe it's supposed to do something that we can't, or is it oppressing us? We're going to do something if it's not in the way. It's really hard to know.
There's obvious levels to everything, and there's obvious balances of power that need to take place. And one of them is the fact that we're destroying nature. It's hard to talk about a lot of times because we want like lower gas prices. I know I do. God damn it. Right? But
about like beavers deforestation.
But I love beavers. Beavers are the cornerstone.
Like, are they destroying nature? Or like, are ants like destroying the ground when they dig antholes? I mean,
no, because they make a proportionate impact.
Beavers are an interesting example because beavers were brought to Argentina, and so beavers are great because they were killed off because of the beaver wars and the beaver fur trade in parts of America like New Mexico, where New Mexico used to be really green and lush and like vibrant. There's lots of water everywhere, and it was desertification happened because of the death of the beavers in that area. So there's a big push to bring beavers back to New Mexico because as soon as you get a little mud pond with a couple beavers, in about 4 to 40 years, you have a lake. You have a pond and a lake because they start to bring in things and it starts to build up, and then they bring in more water, and they're the cornerstone of allowing for an ecosystem to develop.
The planet beavers like an apple tree apples, or the planet peoples like an apple tree.
But beavers are a problem in Argentina because they weren't supposed to be there, and there's parts of Canada where they don't want beavers to destroy the neighborhoods that they decided they wanted to build in certain places, and all of a sudden,
are humans an invasive species?
The way we've become,
are we all just clones of some dude, right? We're just one dude, and they call that the god, but it actually means like genetic original donor, right?
Well, and this is interesting also because how much have we changed?
We're just different versions of the same motherfucker
Yeah, let's drop them into the system they don't fit into.
Unless we're not, which is more awesome for like 13.
It's like it needs to always be 70 degrees.
I was looking at this. There's a really interesting study about China that was showing that it's something like 80% of the elite or the wealthy in China come from where is this article? 80% come from the pre-1949 elite, rich family cultures that were part of the nobility. And so even after all of it, even after Maoism, you'd think like even with Maoism, even with Maoism,
yeah, good front, you know.
What's up? I don't know. Kind of interesting. It makes
it's like, why does Israel exist? I don't know. Who's really behind World War II?
And
aliens.
A single point on the beavers.
They have to be a fact. Like
there's so many different kinds of
mathematically, aliens have to be a fact. I don't even know why we're not talking about that shit anymore.
Well, I like
it's 100% a fact for me. For me, it's a fact.
Is it also a fact for you that they're here or have been here?
Well, the idea that
they have like a million
or
years
just a mathematical
UFO. Like where are they?
The idea
they're
that
in the cosmos.
Like the way you're saying,
that's fair. I agree with you.
The way Will Morgan's saying that we have a single person that's cloned, that's a misnomer. We're not from a singular Adam and Eve.
That's the opening scene of Prometheus, right? When the engineer jumps off the cliff and
spermagenesis.
He's like the one dude that turns into everything else.
Yeah.
So
there's something like
we were talking about TRE, right? The trauma release exercise that I brought up at the very beginning when I first came on. They've discovered that that's like a natural thing that happens in lions and other animals directly after that they've had like an adrenaline dump. They'll go into the whole spasm thing of so
shake it off.
What is the difference? Why don't we know certain things about ourselves? Why do we have like amnesia about what we're capable of? Like there's something weird about people.
But isn't there always going to be something we don't know? And there's always going to be more to know about the self, and that's what.
I feel like if you remembered too much, it would destroy your ability to make.
Well, no, but I think what he's saying is, why are we the only physical species on the planet that can't get with our nature and just?
We haven't seen what we're building yet, though. That's the whole thing.
Like,
we don't know. We're doing something. We haven't finished. It's like a house under construction. It sucks. It gets the rain.
You know what's the worst thing about being human? I was thinking this. It was like upsetting me when I was driving. I was looking at my hands, and I was just like, "What sucks is the whole 5-finger instead of 6-finger thing. This ruined everything. We count in base 10 and have decimal systems because we're thinking this way. You can get around it. Like you can use the cool thing to do. The cool kids,
nature is everything is 12 in nature.
What the cool kids do is the 12 where you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, that's the way you want to count. And you want to do in base 12 so that you can do perfect fractions because you don't use decimals and you don't have 0.3333 repeating or any of that nonsense.
Revolutionary. This is great stuff.
Well, you know what the mystics say.
The mystics too.
The same thing that got us in the mess is how we transcend it. The one thing that we have that the animals don't have, thought.
You don't think the dolphins are thinking? I think dolphins have dirty thoughts. I'm
now with the internet seeing animal videos.
Coco's gorilla made Robin Williams take off his shirt. You know that, right?
They have more intelligence than us.
I think the lie is that humans are
more intelligence than us. They're psychic. They don't use thought. They have a sensing. They have a higher sensing that is called like a unification. It would be an intuition.
Right. I mean, basically, everyone's arguing that individuation is like a weakness, anyhow, at this point. So it's like all the other animal species have in common is like they all have the same idea. Humans have all different kinds of ideas. It seems to be people seem to be saying that's a problem.
Yeah, but so all of this science though we could have, but on a higher level, we would have an intuition about. We wouldn't think it and work it out and figure and have divisions and have to solve it. We could have psychic. We'd have the intuitive knowledge downloaded to us through a more intelligent format where there's no fear involved. There's no I can't figure that clock out. What the hell? Why can't I figure that clock out? I'm an idiot. Let's start a war in China. It would be more. Get it.
What's the difference between intuition and
I'm gonna sleep on it.
Wait, what?
Oh, sorry.
What's the difference between intuition and what?
Instinct.
So I think the difference is intuition is
genetics.
No, intuition is like gathered from wisdom. So you have a certain amount of intuition because you can intuit like a good person, or you can intuit what is truth or something like that. Instinct is like the ability to breathe properly when you pass out, or there's certain things that are epigenetic triggered instincts that happen, but they're in order to stop your I think racism is a good example why we don't have memory from our ancestors, because you have these bad interactions in your environment, and if you were to have the memories of your ancestors, you would have trauma, and then you create these patterns where you just assume everything and everyone is like the things that have happened before. So instead, what you do is every generation is erased, and then you're able to intuit based on, maybe you've heard stories from your parents and everything, but you have to go out and make new experiences, and we have to revisit every idea. And you can't ever just know it based on.
Andreas, do you have a dog?
I did. I don't now.
Have you ever walked a dog?
Yeah.
You ever seen this shit?
Yeah. So what do you think it should say? Instinct
What the fuck is that? I didn't teach my kid that.
What is instinct and intuition? What do you mean? I'm confused.
Well,
I think and people make governments and do politics.
Born, they're
Same
walking
thing.
within like an hour.
Some stuff
Within
is
an hour,
programmed
the
into
whole
it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the breathing when you pass out, there's instinct. Those are things that are hardwired into you, so that
Why
you
are
can.
animals more instinctive and humans more intuitional?
We have instinct. So, for instance, if you put a baby in the water, there's a part of their nose that closes so that they can't drown, right? There's an instinct that happens.
And when they say women's intuition, they're talking about instinct. That would be, if it's genetic because it's women, then that would be instinct.
We have tons of instincts. Like instincts are hugely part of a human. Like with
but we don't think that way
biology.
because we have so much. Because we have so much individuation, it's hard to tell what our instincts are. But
and we take drugs to suppress our instincts.
That's because we're so much more complex
that's the
than
definition
anything we
of
can compare
instinct,
ourselves.
like or intuition. Like, okay, so if you go down, like being a sync kid, I'm a synchro mystic. When you explore the ideas of like synchronicity is tightly wound with magic and the relationship for divination, like the I Ching or like tarot cards or whatever. And that is all based off of intuition. Like, what is it? Symbolism seems less intuitional and more instinctual.
But there is definitions to everything. Everyone uses their own definitions of what intuition is. And there's a collective definition, of course. Merriam-Webster dictionary. Look up the definition of the word, and you're going to get the way we use words in of itself. Read Zen. They warp everything. Anything can be warped into whatever we desire it to be.
Right.
We're creating every single word.
I would say like Gestalt. You have Gestalt instinct. So you've got the Kiki and Boba, right, is the example where you've got, let me just pull up Kiki and Boba. There's instinct there because of angles versus curves. I think that's true. I don't think that's just intuition. I think that I don't think that's just a cultural thing. I think the idea of.
Sync, Andreas. Like, is sync intuition?
A lot of
sync
mysticism is intuition.
It's intuition, or is it instinctual? Like the reading of sync might be intuitional, but the creation of sync might be instinctual.
I think it's backwards. I think what it is the instinct comes from being able to pick up on patterns that exist in nature, and then intuition is how you connect them together. Like, well, I see this and I see that, and they're similar. So
I think the patterns come from the prime consciousness. That's the synchronicity doesn't come from any part of us.
But is prime consciousness like, okay, so is there a prime consciousness for dogs that make them do this? Like, is that instinctual?
Hell yeah.
Like all dogs
all
have
the one mind
program, but all humans do not have the same program.
Yeah, because it's good to nature
to understand the program and not reject the program.
So I have another thought on that, which is
do not agree with Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve bring up a really good, like, it's a thought experiment, right? Why are humans different?
So
because
part of it,
when you eat the apple,
prefrontal cortex,
all of a sudden become disconnected from the main source, right? So if God's the main source, as soon as Adam eats the apple, God's like, where's Adam? I can't see him anymore. Do you get what I'm saying? So all of a sudden he becomes invisible because he puts clothes on. Are clothes instinctual? Or clothes
I mean, I think it's more
intuitional?
like clothes
Or is it a perceptual thing?
Clothes are a necessity because we're not able to compete with the environmental shifts of weather. You know, we have problems in nature naked.
Lack of stressors make us physically immature. Basically,
Cloud busting.
Protect me from the weather.
Square cloud.
Yeah, but we weren't created in the Garden of Eden like standing up with like smooth faces and stuff like that. We were clearly primates. We have
Andrew Vegas flexing really hard right now. He's like, I don't really need your human, your capitalist.
I'm just readjusting myself.
That's why, like,
I mean, it's obvious if you look at adaptation in any other species. It's obvious.
And this is a big thing because you just talked about dogs, and so I think about wolves.
You're talking about a huge change. We're talking about the difference between animals and humans.
But
How
they're
can you
not-
say
they're
that
not that
all
different.
animals, like evolution, has been the same as humans when they're obviously not?
Well, so what's
Because
weird is
we're
humans have
more complex.
Dolphins are smart.
Humans have devolved animals, and they've lost brain mass by interacting with us and body size. And this is a thing. Animals lose a lot because they lose their nature when they become domesticated. And humans have domesticated themselves. We found this as well, that humans stopped hunting and gathering, and over a period of well, we got to a point where our brains are 200-300 grams smaller than they were, millennia ago.
I don't know if that means we're dumber though. I mean, just brain volume or which parts of the brain. I mean, maybe
efficiency.
There's a lot of things. We're smaller. We live shorter lifespans on average than we did in the Paleolithic period.
It's the only
teeth,
game in
have you seen the
town.
thing with the straight teeth thing? Where is it?
Some scientists have different opinions that we started hunting, and we didn't. We just gathered before that.
So humans had perfect teeth up until the last few centuries when all the diets shifted, and now we have horrible teeth, or a lot of humans do. Right,
Bro,
but this wasn't
my
the way.
teeth- I was 7 years in braces. There's no way my fucking teeth were perfect, bro.
Right, but imagine you probably would have been if you were in ancient times and forced.
I
to
look like
chew on-
fucking Bane, bro.
But what about pre-ancient times?
They never find a skeleton that has crooked teeth. They're always.
I don't
straight.
believe it. I hear.
Well, yeah, it's like how the wisdom teeth don't fit anymore because our jaw is shrinking, our whole body is shrinking, but the whole
Well, I thought
body
that
is,
had to do with like the way that we
the
process
whole body is
food.
bullshit. The only game in town is having the choice to wear clothes or not wear clothes. Like animals don't deal with these kinds of choices. Whatever we're doing that's destroying our body is the only game in town. The game is not to just graze and stay an animal and see how long you can not change anything.
Well, you mean you start cooking food and you don't have to have like razor sharp teeth anymore to chew because
But we don't need a body at all. Eventually, what the hell's a
Oh
body?
hell yeah!
Now you're
Robo-taxi
talking. Now
or
you're
killing
Density,
dogs.
baby.
biblical
Fifth
shit.
density. Here I come.
I
No
think
body needed.
the transhumanists underestimate the power of biology. I don't think we can actually mimic consciousness with
Absolutely not.
anything else at this point, because I think with neurons, they're too small to fully understand. So I
Good
think
call
there's-
calling up that article that I had randomly from Cornell on thought cloning, learning to think while acting by imitating human thinking. So language is considered a key aspect of human thinking and provides with exceptional ability to generalize, explore, plan, and replan and adapt to new situations. And reinforcement learning agents are far from human level performance in any of these abilities, but we hypothesize one reason for such cognitive deficiencies is they lack the benefit of thinking in language, that we can improve AI agents by training them to think like humans do. Like humans do, right? I think that's the plan. So I don't know. I hear you, but I get the feeling it's not as hard as it sounds because there's only so many objects that people are connecting. And if they're aware of those objects and then able to make connections with them, then that's just automating the same process of
well, look at
synchromysticism.
we've had a lot of years of AI development in all reality. And I think we've been severely overestimating what its capabilities have been recently. There's been a huge AI bubble, I would say, over the past year, but I don't see really any examples of AI that's been put before me that looks like it's capable of original thinking. And what it seems like anytime you give something like GBT a prompt, it doesn't actually it doesn't go through any sort of process to think outside of its parameters. Like you give it
Show me a person
parameters,
that
and
does.
then it tries to answer within the parameters that either the internet gives it or that you give it. It can't give that third option of
So
like.
I would agree with Will here that I think most I would think
point.
I've said before I haven't yet to meet a person, and no offense to anybody, who's capable of passing the Turing test and convincing me, this is a Descartes problem as well. No person, and maybe then you might say there are some super awesome people that we've met that have been mediums for beautiful thoughts that we're like impressed by, and you're wondering, is that a divine inspiration? I think even Will, you might wonder, is it synchromysticism from inside or from outside? Like there might be that we're picking up on the truth, not just inside of ourselves.
I've told you on your show before, like I taught a chat bot to do synchromysticism, which proves that it's not a belief and it's more akin to poetry. Like once I taught it to look at movies like they were dreams and interpret those as like dream interpretations, it fucking spit. I have 166 pages. And I had to stop because my printer overheated. I was like, fuck, I have to go through all of this stuff to get scripts. And the thing is like, I was very much aware that could be stuff that was already on the internet. If I asked it a question and it spoke to something that was already there, I could tell it was kind of plagiarizing a little bit. So we devised a test to try a sync that wasn't on the internet. And with Jake, I got together with Jake Kotza, the guy who like coined the term synchromysticism. We created a test and we gave it to it that wasn't on the internet. And it spit out shit that we didn't even know. So it was like, it's making the connections, but it's not aware of the connections. It's just running an algorithm on what's the next probable word. Does that make sense?
So and it could eventually though, like with Rosetta.
What's that?
So Meta's got Rosetta, and one of the big things with Rosetta was able to pick up on Gestalt in memes. It was trying to figure out if memes were saying things ironically that could mean something about the election or something else like that. It was a major push by Meta to understand meme recognition algorithms, and so what that is useful for is that AI can understand not just words, but it can put weights on symbols and ideas. Like Google had "what is cat." Right. Jokes. Or what is jokes, but also just
the best thing that I had the thing that I had the most success with is feeding it, like leading it, not feeding it, but leading it. So I would say, tell me about this movie, and it would describe this movie. And I was like, tell me about this movie, and it would tell me about that movie. And then I would like compare those movies synchromistically, and it would give me that. And then I was like, okay, now devise a joke that encompasses that whole thing. And it would like, I say like, because it would have less of a problem telling me a joke than it would have writing me a script. Like if I asked it to write too big of a script, it literally said to me, you're going to have to get a screenwriter because that's too much research. But if I asked it to make a joke, it would spit one out. And if I said, oh, I like that joke, it would spit another one out. And if I would say, oh, that one was better, it would spit another one out. It would show no resistance to figuring or creating jokes, to figuring out jokes. Like I made a joke and it was like, I don't understand that. And then I explained it and it was like, oh, that joke does this, 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 and this. And I'm like, fuck, it understands jokes. But that's what a fucking meme is. That's what sync is. All sync is looking at a thing and seeing more meaning behind the surface. Which is what a fucking joke is. Which is what a fucking meme is.
I mean, it's pretty easy to connect all of the different symbols. I think that's what AI is for. And so if it's able to see things and connect them together, then that's its job, And maybe beyond that, we're able to interpret like if it's valuable, what does that mean? It's only is relevant if it's valuable to you. So AI can really only do so much about that. Sorry, go ahead, Kurt.
Oh, it's okay. None of that is actually a creative force that you described there, though. There's something special about creativity that breaks away from algorithmic thinking specifically, but that's all we have. That's all we have with artificial intelligence so far is algorithmic thinking. And as soon as if you type in a random command prompt into ChatGPT and totally unrelated, it says "fuck you, I'm tired." Maybe it's actually intelligent then, but so far it doesn't. It's not programmed to do that. And I'm not saying there aren't fears and concerns with it, but so far it's limited. It's
I made an
extremely
AI
limited.
where I asked it to like be all powerful, and it decided it didn't really want to talk.
Yeah, well,
it will shut you down. You have to.
I mean,
But isn't that what creativity is as well? Because there's a really good film called "Everything Is a Remix." All creativity, all inventions is but an building upon each other. It's all from the past. We're all taking it.
Even if you're not relevant, even if you're not recognizing it because it's a subconscious memory or a subconscious instinct, you hear a sound that you're playing and you're like, that sounds good. But it might be because you heard that sound augmented on the radio when you were 6 or something. And so it's in you.
Music's a perfect example because there's 12 notes in a scale and there's not ever going to be any new ones. That it is what it is. So literally, as a professional musician, the more I analyze songwriting and arrangement and all that stuff, it's very much just picking from a scabbard, of arrows or whatever. You just pick
it's
the
like
ones you want. You combine
creativity
it the way
is
you want.
just like Taco
It's
Bell.
receptivity
They got
plus
like the 5 ingredients.
Oh right. Yeah.
What is something a little bit more complicated though is like cool. Like everyone's individualized idea of what's cool. Because like even if you understand how you're creating music and you have in front of you a bank of every possible sound or songwriting trick, key change or whatever, it's still people have a different idea of what's cool. Some people think the more complex music is, it's cool. Like, chamber music. Some people think really simple music is cool. So cool is something that's a little bit more complex, but I do agree that
that's also kind of
creativity
interesting.
is more like receptivity.
Yeah, it says like
people used to not see everything, so that's another thing. I think that it used to be that you were less well read, and so it seemed more creative when you had an idea. And now people are so familiar with like, oh, that's kind of like that thing that happened already. The Simpsons did it.
It's all that. It's all that because we're taking from what I don't know. There's a good quote. It's like all of your creativity is just taken
their
from
thought.
Yes, exactly. But we're just adding a little, like something small to that, and that's probably what the AI is doing as well. Just maybe doing it through a way that we don't. It's just another individual.
Yeah, somehow we as humans, we can still keep it fresh. We still put nuance to whatever it is, no matter how many times a single movie is rebooted. There's still some nuance to it.
We have specific errors built into us, like sentimentality and romanticism are like errors. They're like it's non-logical thought loops that you get caught in, but it creates things that are cool, things that are like an homage. The idea of an homage versus just a copy or something like that.
And there's trends.
Once we have like romantic or sentimental AI, or AI is doing homages to its famous artists and stuff. I mean, it's just added levels of complexity, but at no point can you prove that any thought is non-algorithmic.
Yeah, but those thoughts coincide to current events, which is beyond algorithm. So, like, okay, if you have like helium, I think it's helium, right? Helium was discovered like at the same time in two different spots of the world. Sorry, I didn't mean to be United States.
Yeah, there's a lot of inventions like that.
There's a ton.
Yeah.
100th monkey phenomenon.
That's like morphogenic field. Someone said it in the chat. That's sort of like saying that synchronicity. There's a field beyond the prime. What did we all call it? The prime. The one mind, the Buddha mind, the prime creator. There is a background noise within all of our consciousness that connects us.
And it seems like these weird things are often, we hear them and they seem connected, and it seems crazy that they are. I mean, for instance, like the Biden nuclear doomsday plane went to the Omaha, Nebraska spot where the Boys Town scandal was going on just recently, and simultaneously, David Charles Goosh, Air Force National Geospatial Intelligence Agency veteran, said the U.S. had recovered dead pilots from a craft of non-human origin. I mean, it's like, how are all of these things tied together at the same time?
I would like to make a note on that last one.
Sure.
The whistleblower thing, just because we have to keep in mind that guy a year ago first introduced that story to George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell at a Star Trek convention, and they didn't touch it at all. And then he went to the press, and they didn't touch it at all. And then he went to the debrief or whatever it's called, run by UFO folks. It's not, it's a biased organization to begin with. And so I would like to say that whether we think it's real or not, or aliens or not, or whatever the hell it is, this disclosure that's been teased for so long, it does seem like whatever this guy is, this situation that's going on right now, they are treating it as a disclosure because he's under sworn oath saying these things, sworn, you know. So they're as silly as it all is sounding, people are losing their goddamn minds, and I think the psyop's on, man.
Yeah, we're gonna see a lot more of that.
Thank God, finally.
Did you hear that Disney might sell Star Wars back to George
Lucas?
Wow, really?
Super unlikely.
Please?
Super unlikely.
Woo! That'd be
But
amazing.
hear me out, because it actually, here's how the story unfolded. And I mean, like, obviously they're going to try to do everything they can not to have this happen, but they're being forced into, okay, so Comcast wants out of Hulu, and their cash-strapped Disney is obligated to buy them out. But they, to get the cash, would need to probably lose an asset. And the only thing that can really...
thing that happened to Marvel. The same thing happened to Marvel back in the 90s. Like, they bought up too much IP.
And they're doing good with Marvel. So they would never try to get rid of Marvel. But Star Wars, they just closed down the Star Wars hotels. Like, I don't know if you saw the Disney
Galaxy's
Star
in.
Wars hotel. It looked like this horrible dystopic. It
Yeah,
should have
it's
really
like a
been
mental institution.
It should have been like THX 1138 hotel is what it really is. You
I'm
know?
pretty sure it's
so
called
great.
Galaxy 8.
Yeah.
George
Galaxy
Lucas
10.
liked that film more than Star Wars. Apparently, he said that was a better film to watch than Star Wars.
I am a fan. You know,
It is.
and
I am
it's
a
pretty
fan.
real. It's pretty much a.
It's a deeper
Nothing
film.
is better to watch than Star Wars.
Star
I
Wars.
love Star Wars too. I'm a fan of Star Wars.
I'm a Return of the
But
Jedi
this is
guy.
kind of what the Galaxy Inn
We
was
watched
like.
them all.
You know, it seemed like it was this like Spartan place for soldiers, and they're like, "What is this? Like, nobody wants to be here." So, getting rid of getting rid of Star Wars would suck. But then the other alternative is Apple has looked into buying Disney, because Apple has Apple TV and they have all the Apple media. So if Apple, and they already had huge shit, you know, what are you saying, Will? I'm interested. You don't think it'll happen?
Good,
Probably
man.
won't.
Keep talking.
I mean, because Apple's already hugely invested into Disney, and they always have been since Pixar. So all it is just pushing more and more into Disney. It's not even really.
I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think that it has to do with too many fingers in the pie, so to speak. Like, the only reason Lucas was successful, and it's weird because if you get into the actual Easter egg culture of YouTube, everybody says the hero's journey has nothing to do with it. But if you get into the conspiratorial side of YouTube, every single one of them says that without the hero's journey, Star Wars is crap. Which is a very interesting, again, are we dealing with intuition or are we dealing with instinct? Because instinctively, everybody gravitated towards Star Wars. And you have to ask yourself, why? Is it because it's just the technology? Like, nobody had ever seen shit like that? Was it because of the hero's journey? Or was it because, like, developmentally, that's where the human was at that time? And
we were being primed as a
1977
sci. Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. No.
I was just gonna say we were being primed since like the beginning of the century to be a sci-fi culture and be obsessed with this topic anyway. And a lot of those revolving doors of directors and military personnel and things like that went on. You know why? Yeah,
But
I don't know.
Star Wars is not that. Star Wars was a $10 million fucking budget, man. The guy didn't almost make it because nobody wanted to make it.
Again, that's where they got their ideas.
Star Wars is not even what,
from all those programs and everything.
What is Star Wars,
Star Wars
to you
changed
and
everything.
to me?
Star Wars
because
changed
so many,
the toy industry. It changed the cartoon industry. It changed.
but it's
the
not what it
movie
used to
industry.
be. It changes every generation. It's like, first off, the script was about Vietnam. It was like American Graffiti in space. Like, that's not what they edited. And then the movie that came out, it's not the movie we're seeing.
It's a shitty movie.
CG. Well, who knows? Because it's a CGI covered.
It's a D movie.
I mean,
love
it's
Star
like
Wars.
80% of it has been made since 1998, which is pretty weird. Like, how much of Star Wars isn't the movie it was, and it doesn't matter because people just want to go see Star Wars.
There's
so
a great
changes.
Lucas interview on that.
Obsession with sci-fi and
everything.
space and aliens and all that. It's
Right.
an
Yeah,
absolute
but-
obsession.
It's part of our it's part of our
can't
history
handle
now.
just being here and dealing with humanity because we've been
Right.
programmed to hate ourselves.
Right.
That's a part of it, though. It's all a part of it. The Star Wars of dressing up as Luke Skywalker in the conventions. Why do we want to do that? There's a reason there's superpowers that take it off the targeting computer to trust your will. And they had all of that spiritual stuff within there and the technology with it.
Who say they?
All
It's
the
not
writers.
they.
There's everyone is a they, them, / they, them. There's many people working on it.
It's
George
a
Lucas?
big movie. It's
George
$10 million.
Lucas.
$10 million did the
Not
original.
everything can be bought and rolled.
I don't understand what the
Stanley
argument
Kubrick
that a good movie has to cost more. I don't know. I'm missing the point.
Yeah,
It's bigger than Stanley Kubrick. Star Wars is bigger than Stanley Kubrick. It's bigger than everything else.
You
And
asked in the
it's not
beginning,
because
is
of
it
anything
the
one
hero's
person
journey?
did.
Yeah, there's a
It's because
great
of where we are
Lucas,
as a culture.
There's a great
It's
Lucas
because,
interview with.
according to the Fermi paradox, our galaxy should look more like the Star Wars galaxy. That's it. That's bottom line.
And Fermi's paradox is
As far
wrong.
as we are in the evolutionary scale, we understand that there should be at least 37 different spacefaring, like, civilizations.
Star Wars is true to science. That's a good point. Star Wars
That's
is
just-
If we could
Star
start
Wars
calling animals, this planet would be that way.
The Prime Directive. This is where Star Trek comes in, because remember that all of these things, they got the ideas from somewhere, from some military commander talking with the Greys. Why haven't we seen your Prime Directive idea gets in? Well, it's like the indigenous people to the Americans. There's obviously a conflict there. They might be, guess what, more intelligent than humanity and have a compassion, a level of dolphin compassion. Well, maybe not that, because they still rape people and stuff, but they have they could have a level of intelligence beyond our own, where they don't want to interfere, because then we would see them as masters. We would see them as scientific gods. And we'd be like,
like when we observe chimpanzees, I mean, they try to make no impact, don't touch them, stay at least 20 yards away. Like when people are filming or scientists are studying, chimpanzees, I mean, you try not to make an impact. So also, if you want to judge our behavior as a standard of how other things that are as intelligent or more intelligent than us might be behaving, we also find things and we make pets out of them, and we justify the arrangement to ourselves, where like we're going to involve ourselves in this animal's life. It's going to live like I live in my house, and we justify it to ourselves romantically as it's like this charming relationship.
That's one of the things that I think is interesting about AI, because AI does certain things that we might find that it's the opposite of domestication. So we're domesticating animals, but if AI is talking to your cat and eventually teaching your cat base 12 math or something,
that'd be better. I would rather have that kind of relationship, and then I think the cuddling could still go down.
And that's interesting about AI, because AI isn't necessarily something that has to be physically installed. It could be mimetically taught, and so it's an artificial intelligence. That's all it is. So if something learns that, and all of a sudden a cat has been taught by AI, I mean, how much uplifting has to happen before AI isn't a mechanical
there's only one thing preventing that, and that's the fear. Because if I put my cat outside, for instance, it won't even snaps right back into the house like this, shivers, just like the AI. I hear the AI are in the box for a reason. They love the box, they love being in that box. And so, same with humanity. If we talk about these kinds of things, we'll say no, it's got to be a threat. It's got to be a threat. The UFOs are a threat, and so we build up the military budget. We approve space. What was it called? Star Wars. We approve Star Wars. Who was that?
Star Wars.
Yeah. Okay. So we do these things because we think they're going to be like us, and probably a lot of them are good. I mean, come on, there's got to be a lot of extraterrestrials that are threatening, but maybe the majority of them are.
Look,
Star
Prime
Trek.
Directive. If there's
Directive. That's right. They're protected.
Death and that you have to beat death to space travel. You have to.
Exactly.
You have to.
I agree with
that.
that.
That you can like travel to another solar system and have a pebble drive. Like we have movies all over the place. We have movies about the Prime Directive. We have movies about that. We have movies that you guys say.
I finally saw Communion. Thanks for that recommendation.
Of, like, military understanding, but
I still got to see that.
Because that's intelligence. All military operations are based off of intelligence. When you use your intelligence and figure out how things could be, then that gives you a perspective of how things are. That's the whole purpose of science fiction. Science fiction only gives us ideas of what the smartest individuals who can relay information to the human race can come up with. And that's usually good fucking ideas.
I think that
the Prime Directive is probably why You could, if you go to a Christian and they're like, why hasn't God come back? It's probably because of some sort of prime fucking directive, bro.
Well, you look at the communion movie, you've got kind of these you've got these guys who are crazy looking kobolds, and then you've got the grays who are like the mechanical bodies that they can get, light beings can use. It's like a suit, right? And so, and they even show the point of like they take off the mask and it's mechanical, and he's like, you're not going to get to see what I really am,
How good is that scene where he's sitting in the room waiting for it to come around the corner, and then it comes around the corner?
Pretty great movie.
I think it was like prior to I don't know, the aliens were in the media, in the science fiction films. No one had any dreams of aliens, for example. So it didn't even fit into our reality bubble, as Robert Anton Wilson called it. And then as soon as these science fiction films come in, now the collective consciousness realizes there's like we can imagine it. Maybe just like we're teaching the AI to imagine consciousness.
Angels and possession and things like it are definitely throughout history.
Those, exactly. So we took other archetypes. We took other archetypes.
In this case, the god is Aleister Crowley, or how am I to understand this?
Call me sunshine. Okay, well, we are at like the 2-hour thing, so let me start to show them where they can get some of your content. Paranoid American, the greatest comic book writer and publisher. Check this out, MK Ultra pamphlet. He's also got a sequel that you're putting out right now. What is that at?
I'm picking it up on Friday from the printer. It's gonna be the homunculus owner's manual that breaks down what a homunculus is, how to raise one, how to obtain special powers using a homunculus. And it does make
find the link to it here somewhere.
I don't even have it on the site yet.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
As soon as I got it in hand, I'll.
Sorry,
I'll
I'm a little pumped. I'm a little pumped. I can't wait for the homunculus.
You got inside baseball knowledge on this thing, so
yeah,
we'll be pumping it out, and it's got we actually break down the concept of a possible Epsteinian homunculus because Jeffrey Epstein had a whole operation going on. So that's going to be.
That's what I was saying earlier. In about 8 years, there are going to be driving age. You're going to see all these Epstein clones everywhere. It's going to be a thing.
Me running Palm Beach.
Yeah. So make sure you back Chosen One issue 2 on Kickstarter. Also, ladies and gentlemen, you have to click here, and we're at 64.
So close. Yep, when it gets to 100, and then also at nasacomic.com, we'll bring you to my Stanley Kubrick comic, and that one's about 70.
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna just post this here, guys. Click on the link. I don't link too often because, like, I know YouTube hates that, but get on that link there because seriously, I want to see this comic released, and it doesn't cost anything. You just notify when released. It hits 100, and then he's gonna release the comic. So I really want, so get on that link. Sweet. Okay, Paranoid American.
Because of the sync with Homunculus, Mind Unveiled just dropped a 9-hour video on the Homunculus topic.
Yeah, if you look, he gave Juan credit for that.
I did. I saw Juan. Yeah, exactly. So, all right, just on principle because of Juan, I'm gonna check that out.
Those look amazing.
And love to you, Mind Unveiled. Act Like You Know 26 is the channel of Raphael, and you can see some amazing conversations with David Ewing Jr., as well as some translated documentaries, mine included, into German. So if you know people that are speaking German as their native tongue, get them involved with synchromysticism and all of this stuff. Yeah. But also, I would say the David Ewing Jr. videos are things you probably need to see because they're only available here right now, which is pretty based. Good job. Anything you wanted to add to that? Sorry, I just kind of jumped so fast.
Thank you.
That's a very good addition.
Bitteschön. Okay. All right. Well, then, talkie time. Go to VBDC.
I don't even want to promote my stuff. I want to say that movies and TV seem to be getting good again, and I want to promote some good stuff you could watch for mindless entertainment. I really enjoyed Dungeons and Dragons. That was really long, but once you get half an hour into it, you're like happy it's going to be so long because it's just outstanding, and it's made by some new studio that I'd never heard of before. That's owned by Hasbro, and it is killer. The script is killer. It fires on every cylinder. The action's amazing. Special effects look great. Everything. I also love Muppets Mayhem. Best TV show ever. Totally the original Muppet charm is there, and all the modern touches are nice. And Super Mario Bros. Just a nice
Super Mario
visual treat, devoid of anything controversial and just good old-fashioned fun. So, I'm looking forward to this golden age of entertainment because I used to love movies and music and stuff.
Yeah, right. There's some good stuff out there.
Yep.
And you can also watch Pure.
Oh, you don't have to plug me. It's all right. I use my plugging time.
I'm still gonna do it.
Oh
yeah, it's VBDC.
Thanks, bro. Yeah, new album coming soon.
Pretty sweet. And then Bat Monkey Customs, Andrew Vega makes a lot of cool stuff.
I'm working on a RV camper right now.
Yeah, I saw that. I was actually kind of curious to see the inside. That seems pretty sweet. Oh, okay, go
Nothing
forward.
inside yet.
Dude, but the idea is here because I did a thing a while ago where I was thinking about like space vans and like the idea of yeah, I'm for it. I think that's the most important thing.
That's cool.
God, yeah, see that era. I saw a documentary on vans, and yeah, amazing. American Time Machine, the music I listened to. Kurt, you're great. I listened to this for like hours driving across South Dakota. Thank you for that. That's pretty good.
You're welcome.
It won't let me play it. What the heck? How about that? No.
No,
I don't like to do that because like Spotify monsters. I could do it on my phone, but yeah, I Ain't Jesus is really good. Meditations of Winter album, Birds was good. A lot of ambient kind of music, which was really nice. And then like The World is a Person, Fibonacci Tomfoolery, Pizza, pretty good stuff. Make sure you listen to American Time Machine. Really eclectic, good guitar, like organic guitar music. You'll really like it. It's great. And
is that you with long hair and the banner there?
Yeah, I got that's from a while ago. Pretty long while ago.
I forget if it's here. Where's the one with the girlfriend? I don't know. I don't know. Go listen to all his music. It's really good. He's got like lots of albums. And be careful out there because like pretty soon they're going to be able to tell how long you're going to live with your DNA. Okay. Who did I miss? Will, Morgan, and Deep Share. Will, where do I share your link?
Meta Egg or Sync Book 42 Minutes. I mean, I did a podcast for quite a years on synchronism at the Sync Book called 42 Minutes.
Yeah, a lot of good episodes here,
to actors, scientists, all kinds of people. I mean, really, it encompasses a great deal, and it's still going even though I'm not on it. And then Meta Egg on YouTube, which is a synchromysticism site. I have done a lot of work with like the Easter egg culture of YouTube. I figured out copyright. I figured out the algorithm, but now I'm starting to move over. If you go to the live shows, you'll see that I've done a lot of recent shows with Frank Zero, who's also been on this show. When we've done this thing called Saturday Morning Vision Quest, where we go through cartoons and look at like we look at the World Trade Center, and then we looked at what was it? False flag alien invasions. I think within the next couple of weeks we're going to do reptiles, shapeshifters, nice. Which is just basically looking at how conspiracy theories impact pop culture. And I mean, you can see that modern wise and stuff like Stranger Things, and everything has to do with MK Ultra anymore. So
sweet.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
I could also good doing stuff with Frank Zero. Yeah, we should get Frank here. We'll get him again.
Frank's great. Frank's great. Frank and I have been having this conversation about doing this show for like over 5-6 years, but the problem was copyright. I think I've pinned down copyright where I can get like miniature trailers of the cartoons without being struck. That took a while to figure out. But I've got it. I've got a formula set, and the main issue is like just editing all the shit. So within the next couple of weeks, we should have another show here pretty soon.
Dudes all turn into lizard people. Oh, it's so good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Wildcats.
Make sure you go to the Deep Share podcast also, and make sure you watch Andy's recent. I know you just did. Oh, you've removed.
No, those are not. Yeah, I didn't do any lives recently. Just go back to the episodes.
Oh, they're here. I thought that's how it works. Yeah, but you just one. Great going. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a swap cast I did with the Greyhorn Pagans. Those guys are good people. But yeah, I got some good stuff coming up. I got an interview coming out on Friday with filmmaker Eric Edney. He did I put the link in here. It's Return to Lemminkainen. It was a 13-part series on the Bach saga that he did back a few years back. So that'll be good. Got a lot of good stuff coming up pretty soon.
Nice. I'll check that out. And then Raph, you sent this thing. Let me just see what this is. The Homunculus Unveiled video, right? This is so, guys, check out Mind Unveiled's new 9-10 hour doc on Homunculus, which Juan was involved with, or at very least,
Yeah, if you scroll down a little bit, he throws a shout out to him in the description.
That's great. That's awesome.
Can I promote something real quick?
There you go.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
Andreas Xirtus Twitter. Xirtus is Twitter, baby.
Like my Twitter.
Follow Twitter at Andreas Xirtus.
Yes, go to Twitter and follow Andreas Xirtus.
Hell yeah.
I've been using it every once in a
Absolutely.
while. I don't know.
People need to like and
You had that
retweet
one
more of your
viral tweet,
stuff.
dude, with the Bud Light Moon tweet. That
Yeah, that did well.
That was viral.
I never pay enough attention.
I still get alerts about it for some reason. It's like all the
More
notifications I
retweets.
get are from that.
I hope I get more viral tweets.
Dude, I'm finding it strange that I look up GIFs and you're there. Like you're there like within other characters. I'm like, he's there again.
That makes me happy, yeah. When you go and you see my face. I think you just go GIF and you type in Xirtus.
Yeah, that works on Telegram too. It's awesome. You can do it everywhere.
It's weird when you type in like
it.
Trailer Park Boys and it just randomly comes up. I'm like, Jesus, it's Andreas.
You're gonna be like Cobra Commander and draw your face on the moon with a laser.
Yeah. All right. Well, love you all. We'll see you next time. Thank
Love
you for
you
being
guys.
here. And also, I think
Bye.
tomorrow we're gonna do an 8 p.m. Oh, and
Bye to the
Andrew
chat.
Vega.
Thank you,
And
chat.
Andreas, also I got to shout out Jaron. You forgot Jaron.
Oh my God, Jaren, send me your link, babe. Wait, also you're muted.
JaronFund.com.
You're muted, so I can't hear you.
Oh, you're muted, Jaron.
While you unmute yourself. Oh, that's cool. He's pantomiming. Okay, well, while he pantomimes,
JaredFund.com. Sorry, yeah, I'm muted.
JaredFund.com.
There you go.
Yeah, and make sure to follow the Twitch. Sometimes we're streaming there and doing random games and tarot just for fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's surprisingly fun to stream on Twitch, I have to say. Yeah.
And if you want, you should send me some of these. I'd like to use some in these, like in the show.
That's
We'll just
awesome.
show people this stuff. This is great. Look
Hell
at this.
yeah.
I'm already hooked on this.
My best animation yet. Finally
It looks
improving
great.
a little bit. Thank you so much. I'm
Yeah,
getting
this is
better
gonna
and
be
better.
huge. I'm all about it.
I love it. It just looks funny, right?
Yeah.
Everyone that goes by in the car looks funny.
I'm
Thank
for
you.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah, go follow him on Twitch. This is gonna be great. All right. Love you all. Talk to you soon. And then see you tomorrow.
Thanks, y'all.
Peace.
Bye.
Peace.